Welcome back, everybody, to a special episode of Big Apple Hockey. And it was news that was breaking yesterday during our weekly show, but the New York Rangers were very nice to wait until afterwards to get it all official. Well, and if you didn't watch the stream from the two men that are right over there, Evan and Matt, here's our stream for the hiring of Mike Sullivan. I, of course, am your host, Mark Williams, and joined by the host of the Final Buzzer, Mr. John Fulkowski.
Sullivan Kenobi. That's interesting. I like the little Star
Wars. He is
Wars
basically our only hope now.
Oh, Jesus Christ. There needs to be more of a hope than that, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. Also, we have with us, we got some special guests today. First from Rangers Central, Evan.
Oh, okay.
Mark, I mean, that would
I thought you were going to do
it. Yeah, the confusion there. But
it's good to know Mark is awake.
Yeah, it's not often that he is, but yeah, more chaos to talk about as always.
And also Matt from Rangers Central.
Yes, what's going on, everyone? But like before we get into this, like make sure you guys leave a like and subscribe. Just always subscribe to Big Apple Hockey because they're always on top of things. They're always creating big content and always, keeping us entertained. So, but yeah, let's get into talking about Mike Sullivan becoming the new head coach of the Rangers.
And likewise for Rangers Central and our other guest, Statboy Steven.
Good morning, afternoon, actually, for everyone who's listening, unless you're on the West Coast.
Where are you joining us from, Steven?
I'm in London this week.
Ooh, London.
I'm flying back home. I'm here for work for the week. I'm flying back home on Sunday. So I'm joining from my hotel room. I was driving back to my hotel when the news was announced. So yeah, definitely need to get into this because it's it's something we talk about every 2 years. So I'm looking forward to this conversation in 2027.
Yeah, that's kind of where we're all at right now. Whoop, I went to the three-man. Sorry about that, guys.
What were we doing?
That's a force of habit, actually. That actually is where it always goes. But, I mean, it's
always with
I swear, if we're having this conversation again in less than 3 years.
Hey, Mark, someone got up on your Star Wars reference there, John Bobbio.
Yes, but see, my question is this like more like somehow Palpatine is returned?
No, this is prime Palpatine, and he's definitely going up to Evan and Matt right now, and probably Steven too, and saying, "Good, let the hate flow through."
Well, let's actually go right there. Let's go to the A block and cover the fact that two-time Stanley Cup winning coach, former assistant coach of the New York Rangers, Mike Sullivan has returned. And, of course, the A block brought to you by SeatGeek. Use the promo code Big Apple Hockey for $20 off your first order. But two-time Stanley Cup winning coach Mike Sullivan's back. I'll flash his records with Boston and Pittsburgh because, remember, he had two different stops. Phil, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on the hire now that it's official?
I think I'm going to echo the sentiments of a lot of people. Maybe not some in this group right here that we're on with, but I am kind of 50-50 on this. If you were to tell me that they were going to go retread, this was the best name of the retreads, if you want to call it quote-unquote retreads, because I think that definition has gotten convoluted over the years. The other thing with this is I think there would only be three hires that would have excited me to be picked here. And one of them was not very realistic. And I assume you guys can all, guess who I'm talking about there. The other two were David Carl and Jeff Halpern, who were somewhat realistic. I think there just needs to be a new philosophy, a new voice in the room, a new direction. I think they need to go with someone who's going to incorporate younger players. That was a concern about Laviolette. It's also a concern about, John Cooper was the other one, Firestorm. But yeah, I figured everybody would have figured that one out. But they need to go younger. They need to inject more youth into the lineup. They need to, and not just inject more youth, but rely more on the younger guys that they have to step up in roles and start holding veterans more accountable. I don't know if Sullivan is going to be the guy that's going to do that. You know, there's still a veteran core here right now, and I am emphasizing that right now because I do think there are going to be sweeping changes made, which is why I'm 50-50 on Sullivan. If there's roster turnover, the way that I think there will be roster turnover over the next, I would say 1 to 3 seasons, I think that Sullivan may end up with the roster that he wants to go forward with. He's had good 5-on-5 offenses at both of his stops. Yes, I know Sidney Crosby has something to do with that, but you got to remember, as much as he won those 2 Stanley Cups, what impresses me more about Mike Sullivan is what he did in the last 5 years in Pittsburgh, despite piss poor roster construction by not only Jim Rutherford, but Kyle Dubas too. So it's almost like they went and sabotaged their own rosters with some of the trades and decisions that they made. And, you know, Sullivan still got a good amount out of what he had there. So I'll give him his credit where credit is due, but I can't say that I'm overly excited about this. I'm trying to be cautiously optimistic, but I definitely understand there are some negative connotations that are going to come with this hire, and there are some concerns that we're going to have to watch, especially over the first year, because if those trends, you know, from his previous stops keep up, I hate to say it, but I'm going to have to be echoing you three and talking about how we're going to be having this same discussion in another 2 years then, because he may end up, you know, falling on the sword then. But I'll pass it over to somebody else, whoever wants to step up now.
Matt, why don't you step up and take it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're just going to look at this in isolation as just Mike Sullivan as a coach and don't look at any external context, then yeah, like as Phil said, Mike Sullivan is the best retread coach that was available, and he was my favorite to land the head coaching job, unless like, you know, John Cooper would have been available, but obviously that was unrealistic. He might leave Tampa next year, but obviously, you know, the hope is at least Mike Sullivan's going to be here for a while. At least that's the hope, even though some of us don't believe that. But I mean, yeah, like I said, for me, I can't be. I mean, like I said, for me, just if you look at it in isolation, Mike Sullivan's a good coach, best retread coach out there, and I'm excited to see him here. But when you start to incorporate the other context, you know, with Drury still being here and the roster still pretty much being the same as it was from the end of the season, I can't be excited. And to be honest, I have such a low bar right now. Like what we were talking about before backstage with and Steven brought up, like, and we were all doing it. Like, listen, I expect Mike Sullivan to only last here 2 to 3 years, and then we'll all be back here doing the same conversation again, you know, for the next retread coach that Dre's going to get the hire, because he'll somehow keep his job even after Mike Sullivan is gone. So I mean, for me, like I said, like I like Sullivan as a coach, but for me, with Drury still being here, making the roster moves, with him still having all the control, and then with all the core guys still here, like Panarin, like Mika, like Kreider, the guys who constantly don't show up come playoff time, and then also factor in the just god awful garbage decor that this team currently has right now, and it's all pretty much locked up on the contract extensions. I don't have any big time hope for Mike Sullivan, and in terms of, like, you know, ultimate like success in terms of winning a cup. But listen, like I've been saying, I'll be happy to be proven wrong. It's just, for me, I need to believe it to see it. I mean, I need to see it to believe it.
Evan, how's your feeling on this?
I'm with Matt and Phil, where it's just like, it's an upgrade over what they have, but every single positive that we have talked about and I have heard about Mike Sullivan is exactly what was said with Peter Laviolette. Oh, he's X's and O's. He's a barker. The only difference is the system. Okay, but Adam Fox in the exit interviews was basically saying Laviolette wasn't the problem. It was the execution. So why should I believe the same group of players under a different coach is all of a sudden going to figure it out? Maybe it will be like Laviolette, where it works for a month or two, and then they're just going to quit on him. And then in terms of the roster construction thing, like people are saying in the chat and you guys are saying it like, oh, get rid of Mika and Kreider. That's great and all in theory, but do you trust Chris Drury to replace those guys? Because based on what he did to the decor, I have no faith that he would be able to bring in the right replacements, which, I mean, we'll get into the whole Parssinen thing, which ties into this a little bit too. But the problem really for me mostly is not necessarily some of the decisions he made, which there are things that he did that I didn't agree with in certain, like the Four Nations and in Pittsburgh, because he played Jeff Carter till the wheels fell off of him. And then with the Four Nations sitting Kyle Connor for Chris Kreider is ridiculous. But my biggest problem is what we talk about all the time, and that is you need to develop these guys. Like, I'm just tired of the Rangers having to pluck guys who have done it somewhere else, whether it's coaches or players, instead of developing their own guys to be like a Sam Bennett, who we talk about them potentially acquiring in the offseason, where they overpay him for what he did in Florida instead of developing their own Sam Bennett. It's the same thing with coaches. All of the coaches that are top end guys were developed through their own organization or developed as AHL coaches, assistant coaches. And again, I get people are going to say they tried that route with David Quinn, but just because it didn't work one time doesn't mean it's not going to work if you try it a different time. So that's really the problem here. Again, there are positives to Mike Sullivan. I don't want to make it seem like there's no positives at all, because the track record speaks for itself, taking certain Pittsburgh teams that he did. But again, with this group of players, is he going to be able to get them to rise up to another level? I have my doubts.
Okay, I just want to, I'm sorry, just real quick. This is fine, fair. You want to say that Knobloch was the guy. Let's keep this same energy when Edmonton doesn't make the conference finals again or doesn't win the cup again. So that's all I'm going to say there. And we'll throw it over to Steven.
Well, yeah, we're going to throw it over to Steven. Let me also just say that there was no way the Rangers could put a rookie head coach in charge of that team.
Yes, and that too. It had to be a veteran at that point. You weren't going to risk it. Drury wasn't going to risk it.
Steven, what are your thoughts? Are we looking at Mike Keenan 1993 right now?
I think Mike Sullivan is less of an asshole than Mike Keenan. But look, Mike Sullivan is a top 3 coach in the league. Like, there's no question. I said this to Phil last night when we were on the phone. I just don't think it makes a difference with the team currently constructed. And sure, there might be some changes still, but does it really matter who's in front of this team, who's behind the bench, when players, as Evan pointed out, have literally admitted that the execution just wasn't there. The coaching was never the issue. And if you're going to give this core another veteran head coach, my biggest concern is that I just don't believe that a core of players that refuse to play for Gallant, refuse to execute for Laviolette, is all of a sudden going to fall in line and do everything right for Mike Sullivan. And it has nothing to do with Mike Sullivan. Like, I think Mike Sullivan's a great coach, but this team's success is not going to hinge just on who's behind the bench.
I agree.
And let's also have a look at Sullivan in Pittsburgh, right? How much of his credit that made him a 10-year head coach in Pittsburgh, how much of that hinged on him winning 2 Stanley Cups in his first 2 seasons? Because if he doesn't win a Stanley Cup in 2016 and 2017, does he really stick around for 10 years? The best seasons he had in Pittsburgh were his first 2 years. The same with Laviolette having his best season his first year, and Gallant having his best season his first year, and Alain Vigneault having his best season his first year. At what point are we going to look past these things, right? And I know it's a lot easier to get rid of a head coach than it is to get rid of players, but why can you not get rid of these players? Because your general manager keeps handing out no move clauses.
Like they're candy.
Because your general manager keeps trading for players that have no move clauses and no trade clauses. And unfortunately, because of the MOU that was signed in 2020, no move clauses now always travel with the player. That's why Carson Soucy now has a limited no trade clause for next season. We can argue all we want about the players, but we also need to be honest here that after 4 years, this is no longer Gorton's team. This is Drury's team. The only two players that are currently on the roster on a contract that was given out by Jeff Gorton is Artemi Panarin and Chris Kreider. That's it. Everyone else was either signed by Drury, extended by Drury, or acquired by Drury.
Correct.
And I just don't think hiring Mike Sullivan is the magic solution that Ranger fans think it is. And Phil, we talked about this last night. All the stuff that's being said about Sullivan this summer is the exact same stuff that we said about Laviolette. And I know it's easy to forget what the frame of mind was 24 months ago, but everyone 2 years ago was excited about Laviolette. He was a respected guy in the locker room. He provided structure. He was holding veterans accountable. Okay, great. What happened? So, excuse me for not taking out the pom-poms just yet.
Yeah, and before we go back to Mark, I'll chime into what Rich said there. I mean, when Messier did that whole chalkboard of like little like bullet points that they had to address, that was one of the things that Messier said is they have to get an identity. They have to figure out who they are, what type of game they want to play, where they want to go with this team, what direction, roster makeup, so on. I think we're seeing some of that already with the JT Miller trade. I think more of that is going to be addressed over the summer. So while I can't say that I'm excited about Sullivan, that could change with some roster moves. And thank you, Adam. We appreciate that. Ooh, Ride the Lightning reference. Okay, cool. I
nice.
like that. Yeah, and then Mark, you take it from here, man.
I'm gonna quote Mr. Ranger Central down in the bottom corner over there, Evan. I'll believe it when I see it.
Okay.
I'm so disillusioned with whatever plans this franchise has. I love when people say, first off, actually, let me say this. The letter was a lie. I've said this over and over again. I'll say it again right now.
Yeah,
they said they wanted to rebuild and go from the draft. So what they do, they signed a bunch of veterans. The locker room is dominated by the veterans. The youth that they brought in never had a chance to develop whatsoever. And now here we are, where there's more youth on this team than there has been in recent times. And yet you still have no idea where they're going with this. So that's for starters. And I love when people say, got to hold the players accountable. This is a bunch of players that don't want a captain. Nobody wanted to be the captain of this team. Nobody. Jacob Trouba ended up being the captain. What a great captain he was. I mean, everybody should always break out of the box or whatever penalty kill formation you have in overtime of a playoff game. Go all the way to the boards. So that way you can leave alone a 57 goal scorer in front of the net while Ryan Lindgren is literally screaming. I mean, come on.
And Mark, the other problem this team has is that they have too many players wearing a letter on their jersey.
Bingo, that's another one.
At one point, we had 1/3 of the team that had a letter on their jersey. Can you imagine working for a company with 25 employees and there are 6 managers walking around?
Yeah, this is the exact same thing Steven said to me last night, so I'm not surprised by this one bit.
Can you imagine how poorly run that company would be? And Steve Valiquette brought up something during breakup day. Shared accountability means no one takes accountability.
Yep.
These are both great comments right here, actually. This and then and
look, we can talk about the new captain at some point, but I'm still of the opinion that nobody on the current roster is NHL captain material. Just because you are the best leader on a team, like it's a low bar on this roster. Let's be perfectly honest, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't like Trocheck is probably the best candidate, but he's not captain material.
No.
Maybe him or JT Miller, but I mean,
JT Miller is not a captain.
I was just going to say, with what happened with Elias Pettersson, I don't know if I want a guy like that as a captain, just because if that's the way that you're going to handle one of your teammates, then that's not good.
So let's have a look at our leadership group and then we move on to the next topic, right?
We're going to do another
Yeah,
exercise?
I got 2 quotes for you after this.
Steven, let's do another exercise here. I like these.
No. I'm just going to list them and just think about what their last 12 months have been like. Artemi Panarin. We had the whole situation that we don't talk about, right?
Yeah.
We have Mika Zibanejad, who had a mental breakdown because Jacob Trouba was gone. He literally said it was the worst thing he had to mentally deal with in his entire NHL career, and that's coming from a guy that has 5 concussions. Wild.
Bitch.
You have Chris Kreider, who completely tuned out for the rest of the season. Then you have JT Miller with the Elias Pettersson incident in Vancouver that you already mentioned. Adam Fox, who looks like a shell of his former self. 5 of your 6 leaders weren't leaders this season. And then you have Igor Shesterkin, which is a whole different discussion on its own, who is part of the core, even though he's not wearing a letter. Yeah, this team is not 1 or 2 moves away from winning a Stanley Cup. We need to understand this.
That's the biggest problem.
There's 2 quotes I'll give you. One is, you were talking about this before, Steven, with 6 people with letters. The line from The Incredibles: if everyone's super, no one is.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have a leader. How about one leader? But of course, part of this has to do with Mika and Kreider being best buds, and nobody else is stepping up to take it.
But Mark, it was so bad that it became a running joke on social media. People on Twitter would put an A next to their Twitter handle as a joke.
Yeah.
You know what?
That's how bad
I wish
it
I was
was.
part of that, because I would have loved to have done that.
That's how bad it was.
This is also why, though, I really just don't like it. I don't care about Sullivan being hired too, because forget about on the ice with having a Sidney Crosby, having a Evgeny Malkin, a Chris Letang in his prime. This organization doesn't have those type of guys in the locker room. So, again, you could bring in a different coach, but to me, it's just like, if the group is staying, who cares? And
it's like hiring the best chef in the world, but your ingredients are still shit.
Exactly.
Yeah. You know, and thank you, Johnny, by the way. I just wanted to get that in there. We appreciate that, Johnny Red. But my Uncle Brian, who passed away a couple of years ago, he was adamant about them establishing a captain. And I kept telling him, I was like, I don't think there's anybody on this roster right now. This was before Trouba got the captaincy. And when that happened, he was happy about a captain, but he was like, listen, there's got to be a true leader in this locker room. Otherwise, this team is never going to accomplish what they want to accomplish. And I can't help but look back at that conversation right now and be like, motherfucker, he was right. And he knew it.
There's one more quote I want to give you guys, because it comes from Konstantin Stanislavski, who was somebody every actor studied back when I was trying to be one. But I could bring your energy down, I can't bring it up. So that's why you get like those lackadaisical actors, you can't really get them to act more. You can get them to tone down a little bit. There's too many players on this Rangers team that they need to bring their energy up. I have no idea what's going on with Alexei Lafreniere. Does anybody else?
I honestly, I don't think Lafreniere knows what's going on with himself.
He's got to take it. I mean, you know what, though? All right, hold on. Before we pile on Lafreniere, he's the one person that actually stood up and took accountability for a poor play. Mm-hmm. Why is it that the 23-year-old is the one stepping up and saying, I need to be better? Mm-hmm. Why is Mika Zibanejad not doing it? Why is Chris Kreider not coming out and saying, hey, you know what? I checked out. I'm sorry. I checked out. I wasn't in a good place. I'm going to be better next year. Put money on it. Yeah. Bet your house on it. And why is Vincent Trocheck not saying, oh, I played like an idiot with the puck this year? Why is Artemi Panarin saying, I dogged it for a little bit. I could have been better. I scored 122 points last year. I could have at least scored 95 to 100. I should have been better. Why is that coming out?
It's complacency.
Part of the problem here is also the Rangers organization, who are always refusing to put the players in front of the microphone who've had a bad game. When Keandre Miller makes a mistake in the final 2 minutes that leads to a goal against, he's never available to reporters after the game.
You know what song? You know what? If there was a song you could play for this every time, it would be "Bad Day" by Fuel. I had a bad day, yeah, and they would all. You would just see them with sad faces and walking away from the microphone because no one can step up to that. You're right, Stephen. No one steps up to that microphone, and yet zero accountability, zero from anyone. The 23-year-old is the one who came up and said, my play wasn't good enough. I have to be better. End the story.
Yeah, and to quickly circle back to the whole Sullivan hire.
Thank you, Jay, by the way. Appreciate
I have a question for you guys. I'm not from New York, right? So I don't really have a reason to get too invested in this, but we always hear that New York is like the destination that everybody wants to go to, right? Everybody wants to play in New York. Everybody wants to coach in New York, right? Then how is it that we have to pay $7 million a year, reportedly, for Mike Sullivan to accept a coaching job here? Because you cannot be the number one destination for coaches, but then have to overpay for a guy to actually come here. That, I don't know. Maybe that's just me.
It's also the tax situation that has something to do with it. Same thing with Montreal. That's in there. And
I mean, I don't understand why you needed to go. I mean, if that figure is correct, I'm not. Did you see something official about that figure?
That's the number Kevin Weeks mentioned.
Okay, so if that is correct, if
the current record is Sullivan's last contract with Pittsburgh, which was 5.5.
So if they went to $7 million to bring this guy in, he better come in and whip all of their asses into shape and get everybody in line.
And Phil, you will like this. The way Kevin Weeks phrased it is Sullivan is resetting the coaching market.
Yeah, Sullivan just reset the coaching market basically.
I thank God every day that coaches don't count towards the cap as a Ranger fan.
Yeah, thank God.
I just hope Mike Sullivan doesn't
come here re-overpay. Yeah, but to go back to this post from Spooky, who cares? No, it is a problem because it's not what you're bringing in guys for. They're coming here for the money. Yeah, that's really the issue. It's not necessarily the figure, but you want somebody that wants to come here and wants to figure it out. I'm not saying they should do it for dirt cheap, but if you're coming here for the money, you're nothing but a paid mercenary.
I think there's a little bit of unfinished business, but guys, we've been focusing on the Rangers and their youth. We got to go to our youth. Matt, jump back in there.
I mean, again, it just shows the reason why you have to overpay for guys is because there is dysfunctionality within the organization, and outside people see that. It's the same type of it's the same type of thing. Like obviously, like me and Evan and Mark, you two, we're all Mets fans, right? It's the same thing. Why, if you go back a couple of years to with the Mets and Max Scherzer, right? The Mets had to go out there and overpay heavily for Max Scherzer because they were viewed as this, laughing stock organization. And ultimately it takes time to change that point of view until you don't have to go out and severely overpay for guys. So really people people say with the money and stuff, it's and like what Steven said, it's a good thing that coaches don't count towards the salary cap, because just by having to go out there and smash the record deal by $1.5 million, that just shows again that there's real dysfunction within this organization, that you have to really overpay by that much just to attract a guy like Mike Sullivan here. It just shows that a real culture thing has to really, and this whole organizational philosophy has to change within this organization, because that's the only way the Rangers will ever get to a point where players will start to come here for less money, and you don't have to overpay crazy for a coach what they just did with Mike Sullivan.
And that's Matt, that's kind of my point, because to me it raises the question: does Sullivan want to be here because he wants to coach the Rangers, or does he want to be here because the money was too good to turn down?
There's possibly two other reasons. One is that he was in a bidding war because Boston was hot for him. And also Drury wasn't going to let himself get outbid being with another BU guy. So that was part of that. But
But Mark, that just confirms the point, right? If you have to outbid other teams to make 100% sure that you get your guy,
Yeah.
then it's not about coaching the New York Rangers. It's about getting paid the most money.
Yeah, and listen, there is nothing wrong at the end of the day with having the most money and splashing it just to make sure you acquire your guy. But when it gets to a point where you have to overpay to convince everyone to come here, then that says something about where you are and who you are as an organization. Because listen, there are some guys like superstar players, and the Mets just did it with Juan Soto, where sometimes you have to shill out that extra big money just to make sure you secure that player. But it shouldn't have to be for every single coach, every single player that you have to go to the next step and throw that big of and that big of money at them to just.
This has been going back to Bobby Holik. Toronto and Philadelphia bid $8 and $8.5 million respectively for Bobby Holik in the summer of 2002. And what happened? The Rangers went to 9 because they wanted their guy. They gave Bobby fucking Holik a 5-year, $45 million contract when he was at best a second-line center in New Jersey for years. Listen, it's not just about the money. It is an issue, but I mean, I'm going to go back to this comment right here. Like, they need to change the system, and they need to have players that are going to buy into that system. And that's why I said, I think the roster changes that are coming will help Sullivan out. If Drury's able to do that, then this can be a good hire. I am waiting. I'm with you guys. When I see it, I'll believe it. But I think that is the plan here. And I don't think I'm being bold or outlandish to say this when they made the first big move of that plan with JT Miller. And yeah, Richie Longo, I know you're in the chat right there, but you had been calling for Housley's firing for months. And yeah, this was the move right here. Getting rid of Housley was a start. They have to come in and bring in somebody who's going to put together a system that will get the best out of the players and that the players will buy into. No, this man-to-man stuff has not been working. It hasn't.
And Phil, it also proves that being a Hall of Fame hockey player doesn't mean you're a good coach.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, Wayne Gretzky. The people who are calling for Mark Messier don't even get involved because it's not happening. He has no experience there at any significant level. He doesn't even have experience at junior.
If you think Mark Messier has a great input on personnel, go past Sergei Zubov's plaque at the Hockey Hall of Fame.
Yeah, the only time Mark Messier was a head coach anywhere was when he coached Team Canada in the Deutschland Cup. Can anyone tell me what that is? Because I know, but I don't think anyone else does.
I'm guessing it's a tournament in Germany.
It's a tournament in Germany where you play like Switzerland and Slovakia, and the Team Canada is made up of Canadian players that play in Europe.
And does Carolina win anything? Do you know how many conference finals wins they have in the last 20 years?
Carolina is 0 for 12 in Eastern Conference final games.
Since
The
2006,
Devils?
they have not
Since
won.
2006.
They have
The Devils, the
not won
Rangers, and the
Conference
Islanders.
Final game since they won their last Stanley Cup in 2006. You can talk about all of this and all about Brind'Amour and how his system is so great and all this other stuff. They never win it all.
Nope.
And
the
Devils, the Rangers, and the Islanders have all won conference finals games more recently than the Carolina Hurricanes. Think about
the
that.
Carolina Hurricanes made it to the Eastern Conference final 3 times since they last won a cup.
And here's the biggest thing about Carolina. I wouldn't say who else has won playing man-to-man, though?
Now everybody wins playing hybrid.
Man-to-man. Everybody plays
Evan, jump on in.
I mean,
everybody.
I don't know how much I really have to add. It just again, the conversation just putting a bow tie on it. It just nothing matters until the players change. And Adam Fox saying in the exit interview, like I'm going to reiterate my first point when he said that it wasn't Peter Laviolette, it's that we didn't execute. then why all of a sudden are you going to be willing to execute for a different coach? And also, let's not forget that some of these guys got scratched by Mike Sullivan in the Four Nations, or got
Look at
benched.
Florida.
If like the best argument against man-to-man defense is what Ovechkin said when Girardi was on the Rangers, where at some point he said in a post game, I have to find it, but he said in a post game that playing against the Rangers, you just have to draw a defenseman out of position, and it opens up the ice for your teammate. That's once teams know you play man to man.
No, they do not utilize man-to-man. They do not utilize man-to-man. I watch enough of Tampa Bay. I have family that watch Tampa Bay. My cousin watches them. They do not utilize man-to-man. They play an aggressive zone.
Yep.
No, they do not. You can keep saying that all you want, but if that's what you're gathering from that, then you do not understand what zone defense is.
Ultimately,
back to you, Steven. Back to you.
Ultimately, Phil, it doesn't matter what system they play when the execution is not there.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to execution, yes, but the system in Tampa Bay is not a man-to-man system in any sort of way.
It's not.
It's not.
I can't stand man-to-man systems. I just and to me, if you want to play a man-to-man system defensively, you need to have the intelligent hockey players in order to do that. And no one can tell me, looking at this Rangers defensive core, that they have a bunch of intelligent players there, because they don't.
Yeah, Matt, we did the exercise last week where I asked you guys to give me a number between 1 and 8 for every defenseman. And we came collectively to the conclusion that the Rangers have 1 top pair defenseman, 1 second pair defenseman, and a bunch of third pair guys.
No, yeah, exactly.
I don't care what system you're playing. You're not going to win a cup that way.
No. Well, I was going to bring up that point too, though. Like, while I don't like the man-to-man system, I don't think a zone defense is going to work for these guys either, because, like you said,
they're not good enough.
Most of their decor is consisted of bottom pair guys.
Yeah,
so
I agree with you there. The only thing I'll say in regard to that is that they played zone last year. They played zone, and they were really good when they played zone. For that month and a half, from like mid-late December until the beginning of February, they decided to play man-to-man, and they had their worst stretch of the season. And then they stopped in February, went back to zone, went back to the trap, and then they finished the year strong and won the President's Trophy. So
but also,
do we go away from zone again?
But Phil, also, how much of this is on the 3 forwards not contributing defensively? Because
110% agree with that.
When the Rangers have the puck, and you can look up any game the past 2 years, the past 5 years, this is a thing that's been an issue with the Rangers for years. When the Rangers have the puck in their own zone, the forwards are always cheating up the ice. Mm-hmm. And when they get the puck out of the zone, it works, and they have a step up on their opponent. But when they don't, then it goes bad real fast.
And that's why, if Artemi Panarin was moved this offseason, I would not shed a tear, because he's rubbed off on Alexei Lafreniere. He's rubbed off on Vincent Trocheck, who was a pretty, I'm not saying Selke caliber, but an above average defensive player before he got to New York, or at least in his first couple of seasons in New York. So we need to get away from that. And I don't want to do any more man-on-man, especially with Keandre Miller, who constantly chases guys high when he should not be going out of his position. He's the left side defenseman. What is he doing at the right point chasing a puck carrier?
I don't know. Well, he probably learned from Jacob Trouba. That was the answer on that one. Jacob Trouba never found a hit that he didn't want to go for.
But Mark, that's actually a really good point, because young players emulate veterans in the way they play. Yeah,
why do you think I said I wanted Lafreniere away from Panarin? That Panarin would, if Panarin left, I wouldn't shed a tear. He's rubbed off on him. Yeah. It's bad.
And if you want to talk about the next captain, if you really have to name someone captain who's currently on the roster, I know this is going to sound crazy, but it should be a guy that plays like Will Cooley. Because however the leader plays on your team, it rubs up on the rest of the team. Look at Colorado. Nathan McKinnon is the leader on that team, on the ice, in the locker room, in the video room, even when they're outside the arena. He's the leader. They emulate him. The problem is that the Rangers don't have players that you want your young kids to emulate.
Well, Steven, on top of that, he's not the captain, because the guy that is the captain, they said all along, They're like, why doesn't they just make McKinnon the captain? Because Landeskog was coming back, and lo and behold, here he is. But also, just to mention this comment right here: less figure skaters, more sandpaper. Steven, you're the one that says it best. You need to have skill and grit. You have to have both. You can't have one without the other. Because if you have Fox, you know who's sandpaper? Ryan Lindgren. How'd that work out?
If you give up skill for grit, you become a team that's hard to play against but easy to beat. If you sacrifice grit for skill, it's the other way around. You need to find players that bring both. There is a reason everyone wants to find the next Matthew Tkachuk. Nobody wants to find the next Artemi Panarin. They want to find the next Matthew Tkachuk. They want to find the next Brett Marchand. They want to find the next Tom Wilson even. And we can all talk about how much we hate Tom Wilson, but he plays physical, and he put up 20-goal seasons. If you
this year.
If you put a physical guy on this team, it has to be a guy that chips in offensively, because otherwise I'm not interested.
It's either that or you need a leader that plays like Selke caliber defense, like a Crosby, or you need a guy like Cirelli, like guys like that you emulate your game after, which again is why, unless changes happen, who cares that Sullivan's the coach? Because this team does not have those kind of players.
It's the same conversation. Like, I mean, we brought it up earlier in the stream, but like, it's the same conversation with Sam Bennett, and Sam Bennett's going to be one of the most sought after guys in free agency this year, because, you know, he brings the grit, he brings that winning attitude and that winning culture. But it's like what we were saying, it's all about finding the next Sam Bennett. Because, like, Sam Bennett for on his current cap hit of $4.425 million, that's a steal of a player. That's a steal of a contract for a guy like Sam Bennett. However, then when you go after him, if you go after him in free agency and now you're paying him somewhere like $7.5 to $8 million, well, then it's not worth it as much. And listen, this is nothing against Sam Bennett as a player, but it's all about, you know, value and finding the next type of guy like a Sam Bennett. It's all about like what Steven said, find the next Matt find that next Sam Bennett.
Yeah.
But the Rangers have that difficulty, and it's been a franchise thing throughout history. They can't develop these guys. They can't go out there and find these next guys. That's why they always have to go out and overpay for those guys. And ultimately, that's
but Matt, the solution for that is not to, as you say, overpay for guys in free agency or give up the farm to get them in a trade. The solution for that is to overhaul your freaking organization.
Yeah, but
get rid of Tanner Glass and Jed Ortmeyer. It has to start there.
The first step to admitting to fixing a problem is admitting you have one.
110% on this comment right here. You are healthy. You are finally able to have an off season. Get with a damn skating and strength and conditioning coach this off season. There is no reason why you should look the way you look as a professional athlete. I'm sorry, but he is not somebody that's relatively big or relatively athletic looking. If that's what you're going to be, you're going to be a guy that's, very skinny, not very strong. He needs to be with a skating coach, and he needs to get his skating to that next level. But I'll say a quick thing about the whole Bennett thing. Yes, you want to draft and develop those guys, but people point to Florida and how Florida won. Florida won because they found Bennett, they found Reinhart, they found Verhaeghe, they found Forsling, all as reclamation projects that teams did not want. What Florida? Yeah. Florida gave up a second round pick for
they signed Evan Rodriguez for like $3 million in that offseason.
Yeah, and that's another thing. Adam Fox does make Derek Stepan.
Drafted a Lindell, like is this better saying?
Signed Nicola on a good deal.
That's the thing. Florida found lightning in a bottle, and they put their core players in place once they identified it. The other thing is Will Cooley is what we want. Tom Wilson. We want him to be our Tom Wilson. He's there. He's well on his way there. So now we have to find our Alex Barkovs, our Sam Bennett's, our Gustav Forslings, whether that's Drew Fortescue or somebody else. But it has to come from within, and you have to get rid of Tanner Glass and Jed Ortmeyer. I'm not, again, Steve, we're going to go back to what you were saying before about Wayne Gretzky not making the greatest coach. Just because you're the greatest player of all time doesn't mean you're going to be the best GM or the best coach or executive, whatever the case may be. Tanner Glass and Jed Ortmeyer are not bad because they were plugs at the NHL level in their positions. Like right now, they're bad because they've been here forever and their track record is dog shit. And Evan, if you have the clip, you could fire it up because they have been dog shit at what they've done.
I wish I did.
It's too long. It's time for a change.
That's really the biggest problem, though, in all of this, which is, again, you're putting lipstick on a pig. I can't ignore that we've said for months that it does not matter who the coach is. They could get Scotty Bowman, and this team is not going to be good enough because the development sucks, because the players are the way they are, because Chris Drury is the way it is. Mike Sullivan, again, great coach. It is great what he has done, but we have to see to believe it with the changes. And until there is actually changes and there's proof of it being good changes, not what they did with the D-core with getting the Soucies and Borgans of the world, then the rest of it does not matter. And that's really the biggest problem here, is that the issues are so much deeper than just the head coach to where it's hard to get excited about it. Like 2 years ago, if they hired Sullivan, I think all of us are to the moon about this and saying a slam dunk and, this would be a great hire and let's see how it goes. But now it's like, we're at the point where it's kind of like the JT Miller conversation that I had, where it's just like, he's a great player, but you're putting lipstick on a pig and you're doing this too late.
Yeah, and Evan, the point that Phil highlighted about Glass and Ortmeyer, I just had to look it up because I remember talking about it years ago. Ortmeyer and Glass aren't bad because they were fourth liners. They could have been good at their job, because if you look at the teams that have good track records of developing young players, the guys that are in charge there, the Dallas Stars, JJ McQueen, Stephen Greeley, and Per Johansson, no star players. The Red Wings have Daniel Cleary and Sean Horkoff in charge of their player development. The Hurricanes have Jason Mazzetti, Sergei Samsonov, and Peter Harold. The Tampa Bay Lightning have a guy called Stacy Roost, who I think he played like 10 games in the NHL. So they're not bad because they were fourth liners, but they have proven over the last 10 years that they just don't have what it takes to be good in that role.
Hold on. I'm sorry to interrupt, Steven. Who is saying that we want to keep the veterans? I mean, I don't know if you're talking about us or not, or just people online in general.
Yeah.
The conversation on here, everybody wants to get rid of the core.
There's been a few comments like this where I'm just convinced some people are just not listening to the conversation at all.
Or he's just mentioning what everyone else is saying right there.
Maybe talking about other people on
I think
here.
I think Bobby's talking about other people.
About us. I mean, if that's the case, you're not paying attention to what we're saying, because we want Kreider, Zibanejad, those guys gone.
Yeah, because the core has been the problem.
And I would put Adam Fox in that conversation as well, because not that Adam Fox is a guy that I want gone, but my concern with a guy like Adam Fox is that we've seen his best season already.
Fair. I don't know. I feel like he's been hurt, but I'm with Richie on wanting him to be working on his skating this offseason.
There's a valid concern for him, but he was like 3 70-point seasons.
Like, he was over a point per game in 2023-24 with that knee injury. Like, that's, to me, that's telling.
But how was he defensively?
He's as good as he can be because he's playing with shit on defense. And that's why I hate when people try to tell me that analytics are independent. They're not. They're not. They never can be independent. And unless you have puck tracking and advanced puck tracking, you're never going to get anything that's even close to independent analytics. So when you have Adam Fox, all right. So Steven, we talked about like putting our players in like the best position to succeed.
Positions to succeed. Yes.
Yeah. You're not putting Adam Fox in a great position to succeed by having his defense partners be Ryan Lindgren and Carson Soucy. And I get it. Ryan Lindgren and him, best friends, BFFs for life. Cool.
Don't care.
Power of friendship doesn't equal Stanley Cups. It doesn't equal success. You've got to go out and get him a partner. That's why I wanted somebody like Chychrun, and that's why I'll go back to the Igor Shesterkin comments and say, hey, that $3 million that you could have saved on that Igor Shesterkin contract could have went towards someone like Chychrun, or not even Chychrun, but just another upper-level defensive partner.
Yeah, but
now you're left with Carson Soucy. Great.
Phil, the problem is that Chris Drury is really good at identifying what's wrong with the team, but really bad at then fixing the problem.
Yes, and we said that.
Mm.
Yeah.
He identifies that it's time to move on from Ryan Lindgren, which is the right call. No one can argue with it. But then he replaces him with Carson Soucy.
And
I think that was the best candidate we could get at that time, or the Rangers could get at that time.
The only thing I'll say to that, is Mark's right. That was probably the only thing that.
But why did you have to trade for Carson Soucy at the deadline? You could have acquired a defenseman in the offseason. What concerns
Could
me
have gotten
with a
Cam
guy like
Fowler
Fleury,
for the Jacob Trouba deal.
Yeah, that's the one thing I always look back to, and I said it yesterday on the stream, and I think I said it on the stream last week too. Was that why couldn't they go and open up that trade and bring Cam Fowler in if you knew you needed a left side defenseman? Not only that, but you would have gotten a good, legitimate, at least top four, whether you want to debate whether he's a 2 or a 3 or a 4 at this point. I don't really care. But Cam Fowler is a decent top 4 defenseman still at a modest price of $6 million against the cap.
And who was he eventually traded for? Because I traded him to St. Louis, right? A month later. They traded him for Jeremy Biakabutuka. That's I'm probably mispronouncing that. And a second round pick.
And
was
that's
that like the son of Tim?
They could have gotten him. And you knew you were going to have to go get a left side defenseman when you traded Lindgren away.
Yep.
You knew you were going to have to do it. So
December
why not do it then?
December 14th, the Cam Fowler trade. I just looked it up. December. Yeah,
14th. It was 2 weeks after. It was almost 2 weeks to the day after they traded Trouba. No, sorry, December 8th was the Trouba trade. It was a week later. But another thing. Let me just ask you guys a question, and you all can go one by one and answer this. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have one of Gavrikov, Orlov, or Provorov at somewhere between 6.5 to 8 million? Doesn't have to be an exact figure. Or would you rather have Fowler at his current cap hit?
I'd probably go for Fowler mostly because he only had 2 years left on his deal at the time, so it doesn't hamstring you long term.
I would say,
or Evan.
I would say Fowler because of both what Steven said, and I also view those guys in a similar light for the most part. I think Gavrikov is slightly better than those guys, but outside of that, I mean, I would say Fowler.
But Evan, it would be Gavrikov for 7 years, or Fowler for 2.
That's the other thing too, where it's like you're tying yourself into. That's why I would lean towards Fowler. It's like I don't want to be tied into that long of a deal, and that's again the problem where Drury's got his work cut out for him. He's gonna have to find those type of players, and it's just like I don't trust him to do it.
I get. You know what? I'm actually kind of with David Wood here. I do get those vibes from it. But Maddie, what would you prefer?
I think the decision is easy. I think it's Cam Fowler all day. And the big reason is because like what Steven said, with Cam Fowler, you're getting still a relatively good hockey player on a relatively good cap hit for a short-term contract with only 2 more years left. With guys like Gavrikov, Provorov, I forgot who the other, and Orlov, those 3 guys, those are 3 guys that you're gonna have to commit big money to for a long-term deal at around $7 million a year. And for me, those are not the type of guys that you go out there and overpay and give them those years in that cap hit. Yep. They're good defensemen, but they're not at that level where you overpay that much for those type of guys.
Mark.
I'm going Fowler. Flexibility is a big factor. I want nothing to do with Orlov in any way. I'm tempted to say Provorov because maybe if the Rangers could just make him more of a stay-at-home defenseman, he'd be more of a number 2, decrease his workload, and maybe you see that potential that everybody gushed about him back in Philadelphia. Gavrikov, I think I agree with David. I'm not that keen on him, but he would still come in third in that.
Yeah, so the reason I brought this up was because of 2 things. One, it's to illustrate that Chris Drury made a big mistake by not doing that. When it was right there, when he was talking to the team, he could have opened that deal up further. 2, The other thing is to give you your options as to what's available in free agency. Not that you guys didn't already know them, but to kind of just give you the outlook on like who it is there. Now, I think Gavrikov is very good defensively. I just think that contract has the potential to age poorly. I'll say one thing about Orlov, Matt, is that I don't think he's getting a 7-year deal at 33 years old. I think he gets like a 3 or a 4-year deal. I can't see him getting any more than that. Even then, a 3 to 4 year deal to a guy who's going to end up being like 37, 38 by the time that deal ends, that deal could age very poorly depending on his play and injuries and so on. But
that's fair. And even for me, like the last 2 years of watching Carolina, I've never been a big fan of Orlov in Carolina. I don't think maybe it's the system. For me, he hasn't looked good in Carolina, and especially for the type of money he's making.
Even in Boston, he didn't look that great.
You know what? It's funny because in Boston, he actually was putting up a bunch of points, and that's why he got that $7 million cap figure, because he ended the season strong and the points were pretty high. That was his career high points that year. I agree that he doesn't look good in Carolina. I don't think he's a fit. Just like Brady Shea is not a fit in Nashville, he's not a fit there. But I do think that Orlov has some of the qualities that Adam Fox needs in a partner. He needs someone that is a good skater that is able to transport the puck out of the zone. But he also needs somebody who is able to hold his own defensively and to cover for him a bit. So that's where I'm kind of torn between a guy like Orlov and a guy like Gavrikov.
I'm going to make 2 points. By the way, sorry, Evan, you first.
I was just going to jump in and say with the Fowler thing, I mean, I could paint it in an even worse light because there was salary retention in that deal. So if you got Fowler at that $4 million cap hit, you're spending more on Susie and Vakanainen next season than it would have been to have Cam Fowler at the $4 million cap hit.
Steven, you were talking about it before about the best season Adam Fox ever had. And one guy to always compare him to, obviously, is Brian Leetch.
Mhm.
And Brian Leetch, he goes from winning the Norris in 96, 97 and putting up 78 points. And that was an outstanding season from him. And he could have won it the year before, too, but they didn't give it to him.
Yeah, we gave Ray Bork final year.
Well, I mean, you can't complain about when your usual suspects are Ray Bork and Chris Chelios and Brian Leetch. That was the 90s, basically. But then you have 97, 98 hits. He has 50 points, minus 36. His partner in that time was Jeff Bucheboom. That's when Jeff Bucheboom's health went down. He was a minus 25 in that season, only playing 63 games, and he only played 45, and he was a minus 2 the next year. The concern that I have right now for Adam Fox is mimicking Brian Leetch, who after that, he was he went from minus 36, minus 7, minus 16. He wasn't a plus player until 2002 again. The Rangers find the right complementary defenseman for Adam Fox. And let me also echo what everybody's saying in the comments. It ain't K'Andre Miller.
It's I love. All right, so we're gonna have. I'm not even gonna mention names because there are people who just, and it's not one person. There are several people on Twitter who keep talking about, oh, K'Andre Miller needs to play with Adam Fox because the charts say that they're good together. They're not that good together. I'm sorry, they're just not. The eye test tells you.
It's also a really small sample size.
It's a very, very small sample size. And K'Andre Miller is not going to continue to play well when he's playing tougher minutes. I mean, when he gets the tougher minutes, when like the pressure is actually on, he doesn't play up to it. Sorry, he just doesn't.
The Rangers struggling something off a small sample size? Never heard of that.
Regarding Adam
Oh,
Fox.
well, Morgan, hello.
Regarding Adam Fox, Mark, I know it's a comparison that a lot of Ranger fans are going to make, but Adam Fox is not Brian Leetch. I'm sorry.
Oh, no.
Adam Fox, by the way, Adam Fox's best season is one where he didn't win the Norris. It was the year Erik Karlsson robbed Adam Fox.
Yeah, 2023.
But if you look at...
We know my thoughts on that one.
Yeah, if you look at Adam Fox, He could be a Hall of Famer, but I'm not convinced he's a Hall of Famer. Brian Leach at age 27 had done so much more than Adam Fox so far. I just hope Adam Fox can be a Norris finalist for 5 out of the next 8 years. If that happens, I'm happy. But Adam Fox right now, and to Phil's point, yes, he needs to have a better guy on his pair. But Adam Fox needs to play better than he did this season. He's still a top 15 defenseman the way he plays
Yeah.
now, but we need him to be more than that if we want to win a cup. And that's all it's about now. I have seen the range. Chris Kreider has made it to the Eastern Conference Final 5 times as a Ranger,
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
which is insane to think about. I don't care about President's Trophies anymore. I don't care about conference final appearances anymore. The only thing I care about is the Rangers winning a cup, and I don't care who's on the team when they do it. I don't care if it's 23 North Koreans that I've never heard of before. I don't care. I want the Rangers to win a Stanley Cup. I don't care which names are on the back of the jersey.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on
Name
that
on
one.
the front matters more.
Yeah, the name on the front matters a whole lot more. And going with what Matt said before, after all, the New York Rangers, they had to trade for a captain and become the first franchise
Okay.
to win a Stanley Cup with a trade for the captain.
Oh, Mark, I'll quickly chime in here.
Yeah, we got this
and
comment.
I'm going to say this that I said about Laviolette 2 years ago as well. And I know this is not like this. I mean, take this with a grain of salt. I just want to mention it because it's an interesting tidbit. But do you know how many coaches have won a Stanley Cup with 2 different teams?
Just one.
There's 3 actually, but the other 2 are in the
I think only one in the modern era though.
Yeah, there was Dick Irvin in the 30s and 40s with the Leafs and the
Patrick.
Canadiens. Tommy Gorman with the Hawks and the Maroons in the 1930s, and then Scotty Bowman with the Canadiens in
the modern era. I try to distinguish those because it's 2 completely different games back then. We're talking about when there was no forward passes with one of those, I believe, and both of those were in the I think actually before the original 6 era.
1930. Tommy Gorman was 34 and 35, and the original 6 era started in 1942. But my point is, and I'm not saying that the Rangers aren't going to win a cup with Sullivan. What I'm going to say is, for the Rangers to win a cup with Mike Sullivan as their head coach, Sullivan has to do something only one head coach has done in the modern era, and that's win a cup with 2 different teams.
Yeah. And I fully expected Laviolette to lead the Rangers to the Stanley Cup Finals last year and potentially win it because he's led 3 different teams to the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yep.
Let me go over one thing, though, with you guys, and let me try to say this might spin into a little bit of a positive. We all have our misgivings about the Rangers' decor, but let's look at the Pittsburgh Penguins' decor in it was 2015. I had it for you guys right here. My apologies. But you had Ron Hazy was on there. Trevor Daley was on there. Brian Dumoulin was on there. Chris Letang was there. I think he was injured most of that season.
No, that was the year that he had the stroke, I think.
Yeah. Adam Clendenning, Ian Cole. I mean, let me know when you get to a name that really excites you. Oli Mata, Derek Pouliot. Oh, wait, sorry. Yeah, this is 15-16. I mean, meant to get to this one. Oh, no, actually, that was the right one because that was the first Stanley Cup. I mean, Rob Scuderi made a brief appearance on that roster. I mean, this was not exactly the greatest roster in the world.
Yeah, but we're also talking about, like, the way defensemen were then compared to now. Like, now you need those guys on the back end that could really move the puck out of their own end and have good skating ability, where there you could get away with having more of the stay-at-home type defenseman.
Yeah, Evan's definitely right about that. That was a time where they were slowly getting away. That was when the game was transitioning. Like the early part of last decade was when you saw like LA won with their 2 big bruising teams. After LA won, like when Chicago won their last Stanley Cup, that was when teams really started transitioning towards more of a speed up tempo puck possession type game. The game had changed big time since the 04-05 lockout. When we came back, remember how like guys, Mark and Steven, because you guys were really watching, Evan and Matt, you guys were very young at that time. But like, remember how like Vladimir Malikov and Dan McGillis and Chris Terrian and Mike Rathje and Marcus Ragnarsson were being like filtered out of the game at that point.
Yeah.
Then the next few years, those guys were finally gone. And then we thought, oh, you know what? There's guys like Dan Girardi who are more of your contemporary stay-at-home types right now. And then as the years went on, the game sped up, and Dan Girardi and Mark Stahl were the guys that were filtered out. And then now comes in guys like Vladislav Gavrikov. There's going to be a point where those guys start getting filtered out. Evan was right.
Yeah. If Quinn Hughes, Kyle McCarr, and Adam Fox played in 2006 the way they played now,
they would get eaten alive.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. No, I mean, I was just saying, Mark, you bring up a good point about the D and like the Penguins decor of that time, and like the names don't jump out at you. But then, I mean, just to counter that, look how much deeper their forward core was compared to this team.
Yeah.
You have two guaranteed first ballot Hall of Famers in Crosby and Malkin. You had Kunitz, you had Patrick Hornqvist, you had the HBK line. Like that forward core was so
Matt
deep.
Cullen.
But they had to go out and get
very good for them.
And that team played the right way. They played a north-south style. They were willing to buy into a system where, you dump the puck in, you forecheck, you win those board battles, you show up and you play that physical style. This forward core, I mean, we've seen it. Yeah. We've seen it the last 3 years, when they got into the playoffs. They fizzle out from that play style. And ultimately, that's one of the main reasons why Florida completely just dominated them last year in the conference final, because they can't play that system and they won't buy into that system.
Those teams had the will to defend.
Two things they had in spades aside from that, Evan, because that's actually a good point.
And Evan, great line.
Yeah. I mean,
thanks, Brian Will.
One, what they had was they had a system in place, and they were the deepest team that Pittsburgh had iced probably since 92-93. I mean, if that 92-93 team probably should have won the cup, but I think they became complacent against the Islanders, and they let the Islanders get into their heads. Another story, another time. The other thing that they had, which we're going to go back to before, leadership.
Yep. See, Phil, I'll bring up that quote Matt Cullen said. Somebody
Matt
asked
Cullen
him.
Was a leader.
Yeah, first of all, Matt Cullen was a leader, but and former Ranger.
Leader too.
But the line Matt Cullen said was, "What makes Sidney Crosby such a good leader?" And he came out and said, "Well, he has the talent of a Hall of Famer and the work ethic of a fourth liner trying to make the team." Can you say that realistically with Mika Zibanejad and some of these other guys that are so complacent? Like Mika Zibanejad, who's probably still dreaming of his 5-goal game, going, "Look, I had 5 goals."
Yeah,
Shut up.
The only way the current Rangers get into the Hall of Fame is if they buy a ticket.
Yeah,
and there's no one on the current. The only player on the current roster that has a chance of getting into the Hall of Fame is Artemi Panarin, and that's solely because of what he's doing as an undrafted free agent.
Yeah.
And then, and then not to mention, because I forgot to bring them up, that 16-17 Penguin team, you had a rookie, Jay Gensel step into the playoffs, his first playoff appearance ever, and he puts up 21 points in 25 games, 13 goals, 8 assists, and he was a big reason why the Penguins ended up going back to back.
Yeah, it did help that he played with Crosby though.
Oh, it did, but.
Yeah.
Sure, that's why there's been Crosby merchant allegations about him for years, and then what happens? He goes to Carolina. He puts up a ton of points there. He's one of their best players. He goes to Tampa, and he looks better than Steven Stamkos has the last few years there.
No, but I'm Phil. I mean, as a rookie, playing with Sidney Crosby makes it a little easier to adjust to the next level.
Okay.
Than to be buried on the fourth line.
Yes, I agree. But I know you're kind of tongue in cheek with that. I totally picked that up from you. I know you better, but it's it's also one thing because Sidney Crosby will always go back. And I guarantee you, if you ask him about this, you ask him who his favorite line mates were, I guarantee you the first name that's probably going to be at the top of his list is going to be Pascal Dupuis.
Oh, Dupuis. All right, yeah.
Yeah.
He's gonna say Dupuis. And the point I'm making is that you have to be able to do things to play with these guys. It's not, you can't just go in there and play with them. Yes, I know Andy Hilbert was almost a point per game player. I know a lot of people on this stream are not going to even know who the hell that is. But Andy Hilbert was almost a point per game player with Sidney Crosby in 2006. But I'll tell you right now, you have to be able to do the things to help these guys out. And it's not just any guy that can just go in and play with these guys. They demand a lot from their line mates. Whether their line mate is a guy like Dupuis or a guy like Getson.
Well, by the way,
he's so sorry. Like, of course, I'm saying it tongue in cheek because he's no Jonathan Chichu.
All right, that's the ultimate better player person because that guy.
There's the mic drop.
I actually saw Jonathan Chichu play in Croatia in 2017. He finished his career in the International Central European Hockey League.
Guys, by the way, you're all forgetting about the Hall of Famer that's already on the Rangers roster. I mean, Igor Shesterkin. His numbers in the rafters. He's so great that they took down everyone else's.
Well, no,
there's another name in the rafters. Just look up.
There is another guy. He's got to look up, Mark.
Billy Joel?
No,
Chris Kreider.
Chris Kreider. I forgot about that. But they took down every number because Igor is the greatest. He's the greatest goalie to be 12th in the league in save percentage with numbers that are declining. So,
he's so good.
Sorry, that's true.
He's so good. He needs multiple mental resets a year.
Yeah.
We were spoiled with Henrik Lundqvist.
Yeah.
Very.
And
by the way, when Igor plays 60 games in a season, which he's gonna need to, making $11.5 million. Let's see how those numbers do.
Yeah, Mark, I said this last week. I said this last week when I was on, when we were talking about breakup day. When Matt Zuccarello was traded away, Henrik Lundqvist was devastated. He was crying in the locker room.
Yeah, we saw all the
But did you notice it in his game?
No.
Nope.
No. Mika Zibanejad is complaining that it was mentally the toughest few months of his entire career when Trouba was moved and when Gaudreau was moved. Give me a break. This is the softest core I've ever watched play for the Rangers, no question. And I've said this to Filk. I think the dark ages from '97 to 2004, they were shit, but at least you could respect them
because they aired it out. They made you understand that. Yeah, I've said this several times on this stream. I've said this on Rangers Central. I've said this on Twitter. You at least understood that the country club environment was there.
Yeah.
Okay. We've talked about this numerous times. There is no comparison from the defense he has right now to the defense Henrik Lundqvist had in his rookie year.
No. And this whole revisionist history that's going on right now with this comment is just no. Sorry. The Torch defensive team, do you know what that was? It's called the 6 goalie system. There was a joke that was going. Steven, you remember the joke on HF boards? How many people had 6 goalie system in their either their profile on there or I can't even tell you, just in their signatures, whatever.
Yeah. How many Ranger defensemen does it take to prevent a goal? And the answer was 0 because Henrik Lundqvist was in net.
Yeah. And look at it. McDonough and Girardi. Girardi was playing on their top pairing.
Yeah.
But that's bad.
So, if you want to put it into perspective,
and for all the people, sorry.
In a 15-year career in the NHL, Henrik Lundqvist played with 3 Hall of Famers.
Yeah,
3.
Yager,
none of them defensemen.
And I'm thinking of one other.
Chris Kreider.
So I'm including a guy that's not officially in yet, but is a lock once he retires.
Oh, so I have the two correct.
Who was the second one you mentioned?
I said Yager and San Luis.
Oh, Yager's not in yet. He's the one who
Oh,
is
well,
going to be in.
yeah. Okay, so then I have somebody else that's wrong then, or somebody else that I missed.
Wade Redden.
Yeah. Okay.
Um,
Oh, I think I know who. Brendan
You got-
Shanahan.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
you know what all three have in common? That they came to the Rangers after their prime. So he never played with a Hall of Famer in his prime.
Yager still had a little bit left in his prime.
Yeah, but no, it was still after his prime. Like in his prime, he put up 150 points.
Who?
Yeah, his
Yager?
prime 150.
Yager
points.
149 in 1996 in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, and yeah, he put up like franchise record numbers, but especially St. Louis and Shanahan came to New York when they were way past their prime. Lundqvist never had a Hall of Fame defenseman in front of him.
No.
Yeah.
If you want to talk about a goalie who was elevated by the guys in front of him, look on the other side of the Hudson River.
Yeah, Brodeur. All right. So.
Oh yeah. Oh okay.
And when we were on, and Jim Beeringer was on with us yesterday, and Brodeur was the right fit at the right time. And yes, I mean he was the perfect element there. He was able to play as a third defenseman because he was a great puck handler. You couldn't touch him if he was out of the crease, otherwise you were getting an interference penalty, which just blows my mind that the way they call the game now, but yet he could go free range and go play the puck and you couldn't touch him. The other thing is that I've always said this about Martin Brodeur. He was never the most important player on any of his teams, especially the teams that he won. He never won a Conn Smythe. He lost the Conn Smythe to an opposing goaltender. He's the last one to do that.
Jaguar.
And
actually, no.
Conn Smythes
Jaguar's not the last losing player to win the Conn Smythe.
No, he's an opposing
McDavid,
goaltender.
last losing goaltender. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
That's the caveat that helps get rid
McDavid.
of
Fair enough.
McDavid, yes, McDavid. Then McDavid should have. He reset it. He reset our Wayne Gretzky playoff record. I mean,
Yep.
So
it's phenomenal that in the span of 12 months we saw 3 Gretzky records be shattered, right?
that's insane. His points per game record by Crosby, the goals record by Ovechkin, and the playoff assist record by McDavid in 12 months span. That's unreal.
3 Gretzky records.
And just to be clear about this, I'm not constantly ripping on Igor because of, well, his numbers are declining. It was that everybody wanted to make Igor into this godlike figure, not seeing that his numbers were going down, and he didn't play that much. Henrik Lundqvist played 70 games a year, 3 straight years, and was a runner-up for the Vezina Trophy. This guy, Igor, does not use the same workload. He goes on vacations, mentally speaking, as we said before. And now we're paying him $3 million more than the guy that just won back-to-back Vezina Trophy winners. I don't care what his playoff numbers are, because you have to because then you're going to look over at Igor and go, well, he's got these playoff numbers. Good. Get to the regular season. Out of the regular season, get to the postseason. They didn't make it this year. They may not make it next year. Then what good is this contract? Henrik Lundqvist won 3 playoff series in his last contract.
This is the best point right here.
2 of them.
And this is why I hate this contract, is because not only did you give it to a 30-year-old goaltender that's eventually going to decline about halfway through it, you gave it to a goaltender that to pay him like he's Dominik Hasek when he's had one season where he's played like Dominik Hasek.
We're telling it to you the truth. Is Igor Shesterkin going to be this good at 38?
I'm not.
This is why you got to talk about this contract.
Yeah. And the one thing that will always annoy me about Lundqvist is in his rookie year, and I'm going a little bit off topic here, but
he was at Vezina Finals in his rookie year.
It always annoyed me, Philk, that he finished below Brodeur for the Vezina, but ahead of Brodeur for the Hart.
Which doesn't make any sense.
How does that make sense?
It makes 0 sense. I hated the voting that year. He finished 3rd in the Vezina voting. He didn't even finish
fourth in Calder. 4th in Calder voting,
which is stupid.
Does anyone remember the 3 players ahead of him for Calder voting?
Alexander Ovechkin, Sidney Crosby, and I think the other one was Dion Phaneuf.
You're correct.
Dion Phaneuf was in third.
And by the way, no, I don't. First off, I don't say LeBron is like LeBron in Cleveland. Oh, look at all this I got to do by myself. If you're saying I got to do this all by myself, you're not a team player. Don't be frustrated. Don't rip off your jersey and walk out. Lundqvist never threw his defenseman under the bus.
The thing that drives me insane about this conversation is the amount of goalpost shifting there's been from the people that wanted to pay Igor, because now all of a sudden when they paid Igor, all I heard is that he's their only chance of going to the playoffs and winning a cup. Now they don't make the playoffs with him making 5.6 in the last year of him making that money. Now he's going to be getting more money. How are you turning this thing around with him making more money? It just, again, the goalpost shifting is what drives me insane about this.
That's on the GM. That's on the GM. Okay, so then why is it that you guys want to pay him for a 16-game sample size? That's another thing that comes up constantly. Why is it that it's okay to pay him for a 16-game sample size, but it's not okay to use that same logic for other players? I want to bring in a guy like Sam Bennett. Not that I want to pay Sam Bennett $7.5 million or whatever it's going to take, but why do we need to overpay the position that depends most on the team in front of them? Crazy money, and that's somehow not a bad allocation of money, but bringing in other playoff performers is.
And this is the thing that drives me insane, because people are like, but the cap's going up. We're saying that with every signing, and we didn't even get to the Juuso Parssinen thing, which drove me insane today, because they're allocating so much money between Igor Shesterkin being overpaid by $3 million, between now signing Juuso Parssinen and the 1.25 to be worse than Johnny Brodzinski, yet have the same role as him. Euro Vakanainen's a seventh defenseman that's going to make 1.5. So for all the people that are like, oh, well, it's just $3 million, and then with Will Borgen, oh, he's overpaid by just probably like $1 million. All this money is adding up and costing you from getting better hockey players.
Yeah,
building the depth and building from the net out, which you don't do.
I want to say something about Will Borgen. That
Bobrovsky did not leave Philly because of Laviolette. Bobrovsky left Philly because they thought they had the guy in Brizgalov.
And they traded him.
Yeah.
They traded him.
Bobrovsky played in the Winter Classic. Bobrovsky played in the Winter Classic over Brizgalov, and then they still went with Brizgalov the rest of the way. It made no sense. Anyway, Borgen, I don't understand how Ranger fans can look at Will Borgen and confidently say that he's going to be the solution for your defense on the second pair. I just don't get it. And I forget who, maybe it was you, Matt, who said it, that the Borgen extension is kind of Drury's way of convincing himself that the Kakko trade wasn't a bad one.
That's what we both of us said it last
year.
Yeah.
It kind of feels that way. Yeah.
It was a panic because even look at from Seattle situation with Kakko. They won that deal and Kakko performed well in Seattle. You didn't see them going. You didn't see Ron Francis going out and quickly overpaying and rushing to extend Kakko. But with Will Borgen, he has like 10, 11 good games, and then here's Chris Drury with a 5-year deal at a $4.1 million cap hit, and then a modified no movement clause. It's like, why? It's like they constantly shoot themselves in the foot with dumb moves when you could have turned around, and there was teams desperate for defensemen at the deadline where you could have turned around and flipped Will Borgen for a first-round pick or second-round pick at best. It's just it's so much.
And anybody want to jog my memory? Who's the goalie that won those 2 Stanley Cups for Mike Sullivan? Anybody remember? It was Marc-Andre Fleury, right? Oh no,
it's a guy who's actually half Dutch.
Yeah, a guy that didn't play much at all in the NHL before those playoffs.
No,
and then you have the guy that's probably he already has a Stanley Cup ring, and likely going to win another Stanley Cup in Aiden Hill, who played 27 games in a season. So you have to invest in defense. It's not goaltending. Set up the middle in defense. That's how you win Stanley Cups.
Mark, we can discuss this until until the day we die. The Rangers have still not figured out that you build cup winning teams through the draft.
Mm-hmm.
What have you guys heard about this? Because I heard conflicting things.
No, it's not happening. Emily Kaplan mentioned last night that Tortorella was going to join the Rangers, and then today she mentioned that Tortorella talked to the Rangers, but they didn't come to an agreement. So he's not coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
from what I was told from somebody who I trust, he sounded very confident that Torts was going to come, but it sounds like they just couldn't finalize the deal with him.
Yeah.
My question then is, what are the potential coaches that are going to be here? Is Michael Pekka staying for one?
You know what? Dan Muse is staying 100%. Michael Pekka, if they hire another assistant coach, I wouldn't be shocked if Pekka goes for a head coaching role somewhere else. A team like Seattle or maybe Boston. If they want to go with a first-time head coach, Pekka would be very high on their lists.
Here's a question I got. Let's go around everybody. And Evan, Matt, I'll start with you. So that way, because we'll get you and Evan first. Can this team win with Mika Zibanejad at right wing?
No.
Evan?
He's too soft.
Get the hoop early here.
I actually have the hoop. It's inside. I'll go grab it again.
Yeah, that's what my answer would be. It just like it's similar to the conversation that we have that Matt and I've had about the Mets and others, where it's just like you paid guys for certain roles and now they're not in that role. Mika Zibanejad, you paid him to be the 1C, and now he's going to be the right winger. And I like the thing that I'm tired about hearing, and it's the same with Panarin and all these other guys. It's just like, look at their points in the playoffs. Where are those points coming from? When are those points happening? Because every time the game gets tighter, I don't notice him at all. He shrivels up in the moment. He's mentally fragile. You're not winning with Mika Zibanejad on this roster.
Steven?
Yeah, could you repeat the question for me slowly?
Can this team win with Mika Zibanejad at right wing?
Can they win a Stanley Cup?
Yeah.
No, period. It doesn't have anything to do with Mika. Like, this team is not winning a Stanley Cup. You can call me negative all you want to. The current core is not winning a Stanley Cup.
I agree.
That's how.
It doesn't matter if Mika Zibanejad is on the right wing. If he gets on a plane that disappears and he's off the books, doesn't matter. This team, with or without Mika Zibanejad, is not winning a Stanley Cup.
Philk?
No, and that's part of why I hate the Igor contract, because now it's going to take you about 2 to 3 years to get back to the point, and that's not even a guarantee. But it's going to take you about 2 to 3 years. And I like Jeff Steven, but Jeff refused to answer that question because he knew that it wasn't going to take. It wasn't happening in an off season. He knows it. He's smart enough. He's been around long enough to know what it takes.
And the problem the Rangers have is that right now, when I look at this team, they are at least 5 moves away from being a contender. Not even being
that's not even a
Cup
cup contender. That's just a contender.
Just a contender. They're 5 moves away from being a contender at least. They need a third line center. They need a top 6 right wing. They need a first pair left D, a second pair right D, and a third pair left D. That's half your defensive core is not up to scratch. You need at least 5 players added to this team to even be contending for a spot in the Eastern Conference Final.
And not only that, but you need those players to come in and have the mentality to play with the aggressiveness, to play with the toughness, and to play with a north-south game.
And then at the same time, Phil, because this is the point where I was going, at the same time, you need to also put your young up-and-coming players in a position to succeed, because otherwise you're going to have to send another letter 3 years from now. That's meaningless.
And you're going to have to do that with a goaltender making $11.5 million.
Because and this is what it boils down to for me with Sullivan. Aside from Jake Gensel, how many players have really broken through on the Penguins when Mike Sullivan was the coach for 10 years?
Brian Rust.
Yeah, Brian Rust.
Brian Rust is the one guy that you could definitely take a look at and say, hey, you know what? He had a great. I think Chris Kunitz.
Kunitz was already there.
No. His career year actually came in 2014, so that wasn't.
Yeah, that was under Biles.
Kunitz was already established when Sullivan came there. Yep.
I mean, look, everybody was playing poorly under Mike Johnston.
Yeah.
So,
But this
Yeah.
is my concern. Are we confident that guys like Perot and Othman and Berard and maybe down the line Fortescue are really going to develop under a coach that doesn't really have a track record of giving young guys a chance?
Nope.
Nope.
That's why I've said it's just like we're going in circles here.
Because if the current core is not winning a cup,
Listen, I'm halfway on
And-
this, so I don't know why you're
I'm-
talking about proving people wrong and receipts already. I mean,
by the way, I just want to say, keep the receipts, please. I want to be wrong in this case.
by the way,
Yep.
speaking of receipts, Philk, I kept them
I know you did.
From the Laviolette talk 2 years ago.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I posted them earlier. So, yeah, look, if the current core, in my opinion, is not going to win a cup, and you're not going to put the next core in a position to develop into the players that could win you a cup, it's going to be at least another 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the only thing with Sullivan, and I'll give him the benefit of the doubt, is where he was never put into a position to develop young guys. So, not saying that he can't do it. It's just he's never had that experience to do it. So, I'm not saying, Lex, I'm not saying he can't do it. It's just I have to see it first before I can fully buy into that narrative of he can develop young guys.
I just want to correct one thing. This is sort of the misconception about us. Everybody's just looking at us and going, oh, we're being so negative. We're being so negative. We're being analysts. This is why we're here. All of us can bring receipts in everything that we do with stats and facts. We're not sitting there with looking out what somebody did 3 years ago and going, hey, it's all going to turn around next year. Best case scenario is everything clicks. Well, somebody let me know what that is. Does Igor Shesterkin have to get to a 930 save percentage again? Does Mika Zibanejad have to get back to 90 points? Could Artemi Panarin get back to 120 points? Is Alexei Lafreniere going to top 58 points, which he had last year?
It's
Right here, I'll jump in.
It's also the fact that we've seen this before.
Yeah.
And to paraphrase a Batman quote, and Phil will like this one. As a Ranger fan, you either die an optimist or you live long enough to see yourself become a realist.
Yeah, he's taking my Harvey Dent quote. And
I'll also just jump in and say, stop telling us how to do what we're doing.
yeah,
Well,
I mean,
this,
here's
like-
the problem I have with this type of stuff. So I already explained to you in the chat, you can't go ahead and overpay the goaltender because it takes away from the cap space that you have to fix the crappy defense and the crappy team in front of him.
Tack on top, the timing of paying him was wrong too.
The timing was just awful. That was just stupid. That's beside the point though. So if you go ahead and you overpay the goaltender by $3 million, that takes away from $3 million that you could use to fix the defense in front of him. That's why you end up with a guy like Susie instead of a guy like Chikrin, or instead of a guy like Provorov, or somebody in that upper tier. So
and also, Phil, in the last 10 minutes, I mentioned the 5 positions where the Rangers need to improve. So,
And yes, you did.
and Steven literally just mapped it out. He literally just told you the 5 players that they need to do, that they need to get. I mean, I don't know what you're
Again,
I don't know what
here,
more you're going to ask for.
You could just end the conversation here. Just stop telling us how to do what we're doing. Go start up your own podcast if you really want to give your input.
Well,
All right, we're here to attack shit at every angle. We're not here to please every single person's opinion. We do this to give our opinions, give our angles, give both sides of the angles here. So if you don't like it, then leave.
Yeah, and to repeat myself, we have explained how they can improve things. We've been talking for an hour and a half. I'm pretty sure this will be available afterwards. You can rewatch it if you want to, and highlight where we mentioned the improvements.
And then come back in 2 years or whatever the case
right.
may be. You can keep your receipts, but I've explained this. Steven explained this. Others have explained this. I mean, I don't know what more you're asking for here, my friend. And I'm not trying to be like Evan. Evan's going to say what Evan's going to say, and I'm not going to try to control anybody on this panel. And Evan is right to a point. Like if you wanna go ahead and criticize everything that we're saying and say that we're negative and we're armchair GMs, okay, cool. That's great. I mean, we're here to talk hockey. That's part of it. That really is. But you know what? If you're going to be disrespectful about it, then yeah, go ahead. to move
Also-
on from that, I'm done because I'm
Yeah.
done with that. Shit.
Also, no one is forcing you to watch this,
Yeah.
but thank you anyway.
Yeah.
So to go to Chris's question here, for his comment. Sorry. Yeah, Bobrovsky makes $10.5 million a year and just won the Stanley Cup. But as I discussed before, and I've discussed this quite a few times on this channel, Chris and I didn't ban him. I don't know who did, but I mean that's
That was me.
fine.
Oh, I didn't ban him.
That was me.
That's
No.
fine. That's fine. It's what
That's on your channel. Yeah.
that's whatever. I'll say this right now, Chris. I've said this before many times, but when I talked about reclamation projects before, I was talking about how Florida had Reinhart, Bennett, Verhaeghe, Forsling. You know how much that Verhaeghe, Forsling, and Reinhart
Larson?
made against the cap in 2023-24? Does anybody want to take a guess of what that number was combined?
$2 million.
I've said this number before, so
$2 million. I don't think it's that much.
no, no. They were making a lot more than $2 million.
Oh wait, sorry. I thought you just said
But-
Verhaeghe.
Also, Ekman
No.
Larson, Filk. We're talking
Adam
about
Larson?
reclamation. Talk about
Ekman Larson.
reclamation. Yeah, Ekman Larson. Talk about.
Oh, I thought you said
reclamation projects.
Adam Larson. I was like, wait, what?
No. Ekman Larson. Talk about reclamation projects on that cup-winning team.
Yeah, no, that's another good one. Yeah, but those three players made less than $14 million against the cap.
Mhm.
14. That is lightning in a bottle.
Yeah.
I'm gonna challenge everybody right now. You find me 3 players like that gave that level of production to each level to Reinhardt's 57 goals or whatever, 57 or 58 goals he had. He had and Forsling's near 40 points and top 10 Norris finish. And then Verhaeghe's 30 plus goals and 70 points. Find me another example of that in the cap era to those guys getting paid undervalued to that level that are not on ELCs
Yeah,
or second deals.
And to put things into perspective on the Reinhardt goal number, that would
Please.
be a franchise record if he was on the Rangers.
Yep.
That would
But
break
also-
the franchise record by 3. But I think if I'm going to be a little cheeky with this, but the big difference between the Rangers and the Panthers is that the Rangers tend to sign players before they get bought out, and the Panthers sign them after they get bought out.
That is true. Yeah.
The other thing, just mentioning with the Bobrovsky comment, is we could talk about goaltending as much as we want. I've gone over this numerous times. Only 2 Selke Trophy winners since the lockout have not won a Stanley Cup. You build with defensive centers that can, and that's Ryan Kessler, and Sean Couturier. So that's what you build with. That's what you focus on. And that's why it's so frustrating, because the Rangers just want to keep on recycling things. And one thing about the Mika Zibanejad move to wing, I said this initially when they got JT Miller. If you're going to go down the middle, Zibanejad, Miller, and Trocheck, then you strengthen out the spine of your team. Instead, you move Zibanejad over, and the Rangers had Brzezinski and Parssinen as your 2 centers. It's not good.
No, and the last thing I'll say before I sign off, because I have to get some dinner at some point. It's after 8 p.m. here now. Look, just to circle back to why we started this recording today, the Mike Sullivan signing. I hope he proves me wrong. I really do. I hope Mike Sullivan proves me wrong. I hope the players prove me wrong.
Lost Adam, I guess.
But I need to see it before I start celebrating here. I've been hurt too many times.
I'm not highlighting that comment.
No. I've seen this go wrong too many times to get excited on day one of a coach's signing. So anyway, I'm gonna sign off here. Thank you guys for having me on. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for coming on, Steven.
Yeah, see you, Steven.
And
See you, Steven.
let's go Rangers.
Yeah, let's go Rangers. But
Kind of
Matt,
Evan.
yeah. But Matt, as we said, the personnel has to change. It can't just be the coach. Otherwise, we're going to be having this conversation yet again in 2 years.
No, it's exactly. It's why, I mean, even I talked about it before we even jumped on here and went live. It's one of the reasons why I didn't turn on Laviolette this whole season, because I said when they hired him, I'm like, listen, like this was the last stretch for me with the players and Chris Drury. I'm like, I am not turning on another coach, because I know what the actual problem is. Like, you can only go through so many coaches before you realize what the ultimate problem is. And it's the same thing with these players when they go through coaches. It's like, sure, like they listen to the messages first, but once they get comfortable, once they become lackadaisical, it's done. They check out. There is no more message. They don't listen to it. And we see the same spiral as we did with the collapse of the Devil series with Gallants last year. And then with the total just shitstorm collapse where the players quit with this season. And for me, there is no evidence to say that the same thing isn't going to happen with Mike Sullivan.
Phil?
I think that there's potential here. And that's why I'm not completely negative on this. I'm 50-50. I'm literally on the fence about this. I think that there is potential, and I do think that they're going to make moves to get away from a lot of the guys that have been cancerous. I honestly think there is a good chance that Mika Zibanejad is gone. I do. I think when you turned around and you basically gave him a proverbial FU by re-signing Drury, Dolan sent a message by doing that. And whether or not that was the right way to do it, and listen, I'm in the air about Drury. I'm not sure if he's the right guy. I understand everybody's concerns about him. Totally understand them. But at the same time, they brought in Sullivan. Dolan likes him. And Dolan not only likes Drury, but he likes Sullivan. And they're going to, and I have to believe that they're going to continue to make moves to get away from, one, the cancers on this team, and two, the style of play that isn't conducive to winning in the playoffs. And that's why I feel that there is some potential here, because I think if Sullivan gets the team that he wants in front of him, he wants on the bench, then you know what? I think we have something that we could possibly look forward to. But I will say this. Elliot Friedman was right when he said that it doesn't matter who the coach is if you don't fix the locker room itself. And that's what's going to happen this offseason. And they're going to start that. And then that's when the coach can come in and take over, because Scotty Bowman could come in here and he couldn't save this team with the locker room the way that it is.
No, that's the same thing with me. Like, I'm positive about, like I said before when we first started, I'm positive about hiring Mike Sullivan. Like, if you just look at him as a coach in isolation, because he's a good coach, he has a good system, he's won back-to-back cups, he's proven that he could do it here in the NHL. But again, I can't ignore the outside context, the players, the general manager, Chris Drury, because like I said with Laviolette, it doesn't matter how good of a coach you are, you're going to be set up to fail with the current roster and GM that he has above him. Because Mike Sullivan can only do so much. It's like what Peter Laviolette was saying. He can only repeat the same system. He can only repeat the same message. If the players are not going to listen to it and they're not going to accept it, then ultimately the coach, whoever it is a dead man walking. And like you said, until those outside factors change, then like I said, I like Sullivan as a coach, as in isolation as him as a coach, but like I said, I can't ignore the external factors.
And I got to agree with you on that, because, and look, as Mr. Fantastic is saying right here, and by the way, I hope you saw Revenge of the Sith as it was in theaters, so you could at least see a good Star Wars movie in theaters, by the way. You look at this team, Chris Drury has been wanting to get rid of Artemi Panarin since the first Lightning series. And he's just like identified him and said, no, you're not going to be the guy. And I know they had conversations. We've all heard about that left and right. Then you have Chris Kreider, who his name gets mentioned in trade rumors. And again, I've said this before. Part of the reason was because it was going to happen because his no move clause was coming to an end. And they're paying Alexei Lafreniere the money. Sometimes it has nothing to do with you. And then he ends up turning in just absolutely the worst season you possibly can. Well, yeah. And as Mike's saying right here, the coaches are going to dress and play.
And that's why I'm 50-50 about it, though. Like, I mean, I know that Sullivan tends to lean on his veterans a little more. A lot of coaches do. So that's why. And as Evan and Steven have both said, and I said it too, we said a lot of the things. A lot of the things that I said about Laviolette can be said about Sullivan. Evan is not being negative for the sake of being negative. He's seeing it from every other angle that a lot of people who are the eternal optimists are not seeing it from. You have to look at it from both sides, and that's why I'm trying to give you the best of both worlds. I'm trying to tell you that there is some potential to this guy, and I think there will be moves to help him out, but there's also, sorry about that, I decided to just drive down my street at 50 miles an hour on a Harley, or whatever that was. But there is some positivity to be had here. There is. I will not take Revenge of the Sith slander, though, B-Rod. You do not slander that movie.
The third act of that movie completely makes that movie not mid.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's probably the fourth best Star Wars movie. If you want to argue The Force Awakens over it, maybe.
Nope.
But
No, Revenge of the Sith is top 3 for me.
If you want to argue Rogue One over it, that's about the best I can do with that.
I can't argue.
If we're just going off the main 9 movies, for me at least, it's Return of the Jedi 1, Empire Strikes Back 2, Revenge of the Sith 3.
I
New
go
Hope is gonna be top 3. If New Hope's not top 3, I got problems with you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I go Empire, then Star Wars: A New Hope, and then I'll go Revenge of the Sith over Jedi.
What?
Yeah. That again, that lightsaber battle at the end, even if you want to say it was a little bit clunky in some of the writing.
Oh my God, I can't.
Yeah, the lightsaber battle at the end was, and the duel of the fates, that was absolutely just breathtaking.
Oh my God.
And I'll stand by that.
All right. I mean, it's to each their own. It's different strokes for different folks, but I just can't believe I've heard that. You were the only two guys that I've ever come across that have not had Return of the Jedi or New Hope in like the top 3.
No, Return of the Jedi was my number 1.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Well, for Mark, that's
Empire.
Mark, it was Empire that wasn't in the top 3.
Oh, Empire is number 1.
Empire was 2 for me.
Empire was 2 for you. You didn't have Mark. You didn't have Return of the Jedi in the top 3.
I moved Return of the Jedi out for Revenge of the Sith.
Okay, and then Matt, you moved out
A New Hope.
You moved out A New Hope out of the top. Yeah.
I don't know how you move A New Hope out of there.
I have never seen anyone else outside of you two, and I'm not even exaggerating when I say this. I have never come across anybody who didn't have one of those 2 movies in the top 3. Yeah, and Johnny Red, I'm fucking having fun with this, buddy. I'm having fun with this. It's ice cream. We all like it, all different flavors, different strokes for different hosts. But I wanted to lighten everything up because I got tired of people attacking Evan for his opinions on this. You know, if you don't like the outlook, I understand it, but don't attack him. Don't. He's a content creator. He works his ass off to do his work and put together his streams. You can disagree with it all you want, but stop attacking him. I'm not going to sit here and let anybody attack any of the people on the stream. Sorry.
But again, what you're doing is you're doing this with an emotional response. We're not actually just having the emotion on this. Sometimes we'll scream, we'll yell, we'll make our points. But the fact of the matter is, no matter how much I can ever say as a positive thing, I can't help but look at the stats and go, Shesterkin's numbers have gotten worse every single year. There was a 30-point drop-off with Artemi Panarin. Mika Zibanejad looked like a shell of himself. And Chris Kreider was completely checked out, and Vinny Trocheck was left there going, hey, what's going on with this?
I think she was talking to Dave Ortiz saying Rocky Road is king.
I'm a strawberry guy, but also I like cookies and cream, and I also like cookie dough. But okay. Yeah,
I can respect this. Ewan McGregor was so good in that movie; it wasn't even funny. He was a great Obi-Wan. Really was.
Oh, he was awesome as Obi-Wan. But and now Aiden Christensen's performance has kind of aged a little bit.
Yeah.
Like in a good way.
Carly Juuso's salary, I think, is $1.25 million.
Yeah, it's 1.25.
Yeah. I mean, but yes, and see, that's the thing. Don't like the one guy that got banned, like, you know what? You're literally sitting there trying to, like, I personally wouldn't have banned him.
Yeah, I wouldn't have either.
I wouldn't have done it, but it was on, I guess it was on Evan's stream because I couldn't do it. I looked into it. But I wouldn't. I just think that there's a level of respect to be had between the chat and the content creators. And we always try to stay within that line. But when you start coming across and you start telling people how to have their opinions and their mentalities and their points of view, I think you start crossing that line. And that's where, I don't know. I don't like the Igor truthers and the fact that, people want to go out there and tell people that, you need to go pay $11.5 million for a goalie. But I'm not going to tell them, hey, you shouldn't think that way. I'm gonna tell them why I disagree with them. But I mean, I don't know. I kind of agree with this right here from Raymond.
Yeah.
I
mean,
Mark,
boy.
You might have to make sure that Maria doesn't beat the shit out of Dave.
I mean, don't go messing with an Italian woman. I'll tell you that.
When I hear that Italian accent and she gets fired up, I'm gonna say, this is a compliment, Maria, but you remind me of my mother because my mother would get like that. And when the accent started getting thicker, I knew I was like, nope, I am not fucking messing with her. She's gonna fucking backhand me.
Look, there's a lot of, and again, you can go on YouTube, especially you can go to a lot of these guys. And they'll give you the pom-pom waving and tell you everything that's good about this. Look, a lot of this, I like the Mike Sullivan hire out of all the guys, but I'm not gonna be I'm not gonna just sit here and go, this is the great hire, because you almost wish this happened 2 years ago. It might be the right hire at the worst time. And
I can't. I can totally agree with you that it's like just wrong timing, because I wanted Peter Laviolette when they hired Alain Vigneault. I wanted Laviolette so bad back then, and they hired Vigneault. And the only fear that I have, and I don't think Cooper is getting fired, but if John Cooper wanted to leave Tampa, he would do so after his year, after his contract expires after this upcoming season, because it would just be him leaving on his own terms. No. And then we would be stuck without John Cooper. That's the only fear that I have about this whole thing is that, because John Cooper is the one hire that could excite me more than anything. You told me that John Cooper, that this Sullivan thing wasn't happening and this was just a ruse or whatever, or they just fell out and John Cooper left Tampa tomorrow. I am driving into Manhattan, or I'm taking a train and I'm going to their building, and I'm going to find Chris Drury, I'm going to find James Dolan, and I'm going to tell them, you must hire John Cooper and you must throw anything at him, anything to get him. That's the only guy that could excite me like that.
But in this case, again, Sullivan is a good coach. Nobody's debating this. Nobody's debating Sullivan being a good coach. You get the people that try to say, oh, yeah, you won because of Sidney Crosby and Evgeny Malkin. It's not the case, because a few years before that, Bilesma couldn't get up to win, and neither could Mike Johnson. Mike Johnson coached them to about 10th in the Eastern Conference at the time of his firing. Like, they were not there. Awesome lettering, by the way, on that one.
Oh, Brian does this all the time. It's great.
But, yeah, and John Cooper would have been number one on everybody's list. It's just, when you look at this team now, it's got to be more than just change of the coach, because now they're not locked in as they were a few years ago, where you just re-signed Mika. I talking about the timing, and sorry, Matt, let me get to you in 1 second. talk about the timing yet again. You had Chris Knobloch in-house. He just went to the Stanley Cup Finals. Yes, part of that had to do with the fact that he's got two of the best players in the game on his team. But it's also got to do with the fact that suddenly the defense figured out ways to stop shots to going to Stuart Skinner, and then Stuart Skinner miraculously started saving them. That's for one thing. The second part is, and the roster construction was better last year. Credit to Kenny Holland. But you needed to do that hire after David Quinn. It wasn't the right jump to go to Gerard Gallant. We all said that, and I like that, David. That's a good one. But then they go to Peter Laviolette, who was the only choice to make in that manner. I mean, we all said last year we'd love to get Mike Sullivan, but they weren't letting him go. So, I mean, and by the way, Joe's right about this one. You know what everybody keeps forgetting about Florida with Huberdeau giving it better? He wasn't given an NMC. The Rangers organization is just the worst. And the more you think about it, it keeps getting worse. Because, look, you can't just give out NMCs to everybody.
I'm actually with Mr. Fantastic on this. Those are probably the two worst Star Wars movies. Last Jedi and The Last Jedi didn't even follow the now non-canon books and everything and shit.
Well, I'm sorry. The worst Star Wars movie is Rise of Skywalker. That movie is total crap. It is contrived, total crap.
It's probably bottom. It's probably third worst behind those other two for me.
I mean, and then speaking about contrivancy, I fell for it at first. The Force Awakens is the David Quinn of Star Wars movies, where you're like, hey, this is good. And then you start looking at it and you go, oh my God, this is total dreck. This is absolute total dreck. Because, no, I mean, and by the way, no, B-Rye, I'm with you on this one because I'm more of a Rian Johnson. I was a little bit of a Rian Johnson fan at that point. I'll admit that. But
I liked Force Awakens. That was like the last decent Star Wars movie.
But it's beat for beat New Hope. And tell me anything about Rey. Is Rey not good at anything? Does Rey have any fear? Does Rey have to overcome things? She doesn't know who her parents are, which apparently it's the story of Harry Potter all over again. Like, Force Awakens was fun. I'll give you that because it was new and we got there, but it was a terrible copy of New Hope.
Okay, fine, fair. I still like it better than the other two movies. I think the other two movies are shit.
No, I think in my opinion, I think Rise of Skywalker is the best out of the sequels. That's just my opinion, though.
Where did every Star Destroyer become a Death Star? And an Exegol. I mean, you needed the key to get there. And basically, they were just trying to rip off the end of Endgame. Oh, no, they're not coming. Oh no. Oh, we're all here.
Part of the reason why the sequels were not really all that good was because there's a lot of information that's left out. Like, there is no context brought for a lot of the things that happened, and a lot of this is explained in the books and everything like
that. With the whole thing with Palpatine returning, I don't have a problem with Palpatine.
Where the hell did it come from?
But that's the thing. But that's the thing. Like you said, you need external sources to know where and how he can, because there is an explanation to it. But you have to watch other series and stuff to kind of know.
My God, Oscar Isaac wanted to throw up.
Yeah, I know what I saw his face when he said that somehow Palpatine is back. I could see the cringe in his face when he said that line. It's like, if anybody does anyone here that follows wrestling, I implore you to go back and watch the Roman Reigns Suffer and Succotash promo and look at his face when Vince McMahon forced him to say those words. Just go look at his face. The same exact look on his face as Oscar Isaac when Oscar Isaac has to say that line. My God.
I hate to say it, but the best thing to come out of Star Wars in the last 10, actually, I don't hate to say it. I think it's 100% true. Best thing to come out of Star Wars in the last 10 years, without a doubt, and it's not even close, is Jedi Fallen Order, the video game. That's it. And they did the Inquisitors, which they did in the Kenobi series. They did it far better. And there was so many things that were in there. Just if you guys want to see it, go on YouTube, look up Jedi Fallen Order cinematic scenes. It'll go through everything with you on the entire story.
I know, I know it's older, but you gotta give love to Clone Wars. That's one of the best things ever created.
Clone Wars.
Yeah, Clone Wars. Okay.
I watched a little. I have to go back and watch
season 7, the last 4 episodes, because I mean it's not really a spoiler, but they intertwine with Revenge of the Sith. So
I know of it. I haven't watched the whole thing, but everyone who has ever talked about Clone Wars has given glowing reviews of it.
No, Clone Wars
Andor is supposedly really good too.
Andor is actually very good.
I'm watching that now.
It's a slow burn. It's a very slow burn. And again, the themes presented in Last Jedi, how Luke Skywalker couldn't just show up and defeat the First Order, that was actually a good theme that was in there. I mean, again, the previous 2, and don't get me even started on Rise of Skywalker and the mystery boxes. Like, seriously, the mystery boxes is like not announcing your goaltender until the day of the game, even when you know what it is. But the worst part is, it's because J.J. Abrams, he doesn't know how to write stories. He's a crappy storyteller, so he just puts mystery boxes and everything. It's like, it's a mystery. No, it's crappy storytelling. 5-year-olds know how to get around that.
This comment is great. So Mika's Jar Jar thinks is better.
This is prime streaming. This is why we stream.
I like Adam Driver, and I thought Adam Driver did as much as he could with that role and fit it well. I think the way that they developed the character wasn't the greatest.
Oh, terrible. They went in the wrong direction.
They went, I totally agree with that. I mean, how about the show with lesbian space witches? I thought you were going to talk about the HLA from
that's the Acolyte.
2003.
Yeah, the Acolyte's not great.
The Acolyte is terrible.
I heard Ahsoka is good too.
Ahsoka's good, yes. Ahsoka, that's very good.
However, just to mention again, still with this, part of the problem with the Adam Driver character is they made him Vader 2.0 when you should have made him. We already saw Vader. Vader was the temptation to go to the dark side, then the redemption. This should have been him again being seduced by the dark side and succumbing. That's what it should have been.
Dave is making a joke about the Acolyte Protection Agency, APA, and WWE.
Guys, by the way, let's go back to this question. So do you think Keandre Miller is now more likely to sign now that Sullivan is here, or is he gone?
I am not sure. I don't think the coaching makes an impact on it. Maybe it does behind the scenes. I feel like after hearing his comments, I think that they're going to have a big decision to make with him. And I just wonder how much time they're going to give him. Now, are they going to move him this offseason and try to find somebody that can be a little more consistent on the left side? Are they going to bridge him to free agency and give him the no, I'm sorry, Joe. I can't. I can't.
I think what saying is too high of a compliment. I think if Sullivan could come in and do what he did with Trevor Daly with him, that's something.
I mean, Daly, he helped Daly kind of round out his defensive game a little. Not that he was great by any means, but I think Letang's too good offensively. I don't think Miller has that offensive ceiling. I don't. I think maybe he's a 40-point defender at his best offensively. I just don't think he has the smarts to be any more than that. And I think the defense then. Oh, you're saying okay. You're saying something different from what I'm getting at. All right, fair. I mean, I just think that I think that you're with Miller. It's not a matter of physical tools with him. It's head. It's all in his head. It's all mental. It's execution. It's everything. It's being able to stay focused on the ice, and I don't think he can. I just think when you're making the same mistakes in year 5 that you did in year 1, I I think that you kind of know who he is and what he is at this point. And if he gets back to a 40-point D-man, okay, fine. But I mean, I don't think he's here long term. I just, if you would have told me, like, if you would have said like a year or two ago what his status would have been, I'm like, yeah, he's probably here for the foreseeable future. I just don't think the probability of that is as high as it was back then, because I'm with B-Rye on it. He regressed. I think he definitely regressed a bit.
Matt, what do you think? Is he staying?
I mean, I'm gonna answer this quickly because I have to go to work, but I'm not sure. I'm like Phil. I'm 50-50 honest. Like, for me, if it was for my decision, I would let him go just because. Listen, could Keandre Miller have the tools to become a very good like second pair guy on a very good team? Yes, but again, it's all mental, and until he figures out that mental side, I don't think he'll be able to ever take that step. And for me personally, I don't think he'll ever take that next step here. I think if he's going to become a better player, it's gonna have to be somewhere else. But that's just my opinion. But yeah, I gotta head out. I gotta go to work. So yeah, just make sure all you guys in the chat. It was great to be here. Great to talk Rangers. And like I said before, make sure you guys leave a like, subscribe to Big Apple Hockey as always, because they're always on top of things. They're always bringing out very good content. You know, Mark, Phil, and Anthony. They're always entertaining, especially Mark with his mistakes. But we love Mark in the end. Mark's the best.
And of course, Ranger Central. You guys do a great job.
So yeah, guys, see you later.
Later, Matty. Thank you.
Yep.
Take it easy, Matty. I think they're going to be forced into re-signing him. I don't
think they can let go of him right now, though, because of the left side depth and the lack thereof. If they're able to do what they can do this offseason, and again, I say that with the caveat that I don't want them spending too much this offseason, because I want them to have money for one of McDavid, Eichel, or Kaprizov next offseason. Because I think those guys are all going to hit free agency. I think they know with the cap going up, I don't think there's any way that those guys do not hit free agency unless Edmonton or Vegas come out with a massive overpay. Like, let's just say McDavid, Edmonton somehow decides to give him $20 million per year. Like, I mean, that's the only way that I don't see McDavid not hitting free agency.
I think McDavid almost has to resign with Edmonton because Draisaitl resigned.
I don't think that's the case.
It's just it's the same reason why when people say, is Sidney Crosby going to go to the New York Rangers or Colorado, wherever? I keep saying, well, Crosby was kind of the big influence in keeping Malkin and Letang. And first off, Sidney Crosby deserves to be a one-person, a one-team player for his career. And I think he should stay with the Penguins. And how would it be like if he basically handcuffed the Penguins and then went, all right, peace? It's not a good look. And not something I ever would want for Sidney Crosby. So let's.
He could request the trade tomorrow, and nobody would bat an eye at it at the same way Ray Bourque did in Boston. He spent 20 years there. He won them 3 Stanley Cups. Bourque, they didn't even bat an eye at, and he didn't win a Stanley Cup. He ran into Edmonton twice in 3 years, and they couldn't beat him.
But that's part of the problem, Phil. The Bourque didn't win. Everybody acknowledged that they were going to win with Bourque. But that's the
thing. Bourque didn't win, and they didn't bat an eye. Crosby won 3 Stanley Cups and 2 Conn Smythes. Crosby is going to go down as probably maybe even a top 5 player of all time.
And he saved the franchise, Phil.
What's up?
He saved the franchise.
Yeah, he saved the franchise. You're right. And that's why nobody would bat an eye at it tomorrow if Crosby requested a trade. Publicly came out and said, hey, I want another chance to win another Stanley Cup. No one would bat an eye on it.
But you know who's not going to say that?
Sidney Crosby.
Sidney Crosby.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, because Sidney Crosby wants to be with the team. And that's the type of leadership the New York Rangers need. I don't think they're going to get it out of JT Miller. No offense to everybody who thinks JT Miller is great. He's too much of a dag. That's just not going to happen. The current captain is not on this roster at the moment. Even if the captain is on this roster, the person he is not. So they're going to have to do some serious work on that.
He signed previously. He's locked up long term at like $12 million and change, I think.
Yeah, because he got paid just a little bit more than McDavid to give him the highest valued contract because he was the greatest value contract for a while.
Yeah, $12.6 million. Literally literally 100,000 more per year than McDavid's current AAV.
But I mean, this is also why, Phil, we talk about a lot of things that the Rangers are missing, and as much as it's, yes, they did give him that gift. That's a different conversation.
And that happened. That happened maybe a week after Jeremy Roenick came out on ESPN and said they should send him purposely to either New York, LA, or Philadelphia. And he ended up in neither location. And the Rangers ended up at 16. The Kings ended up at 11, and Philly ended up even lower.
And who the Rangers get in that draft?
Mark Stahl, because they traded up from 16 to 12.
And who did the Rangers get after Mark Stahl? Michael Sauer. So the Rangers made out pretty good in that draft. It's just Michael Sauer, unfortunately, his concussion ended up hurting him.
Yeah, this is actually a great comment here. I mean, captains, that's why I have my concerns about JT Miller's a lot.
Yeah. Like JT Miller could be a good alternate and be a sort of leader in that way to the guy that looks over to you and goes, "Hey, you're fucking up."
Well, the problem with Nathan McKinnon is that he's a modern day Michael Jordan. Like that's what he is. He approaches his teammates the same way. When you have the reputation as being a proven winner and you are that good, you can do that. But they do not have anyone on this team that resembles a Nathan McKinnon. So you can't use that. Even if you're JT Miller, you are not that level of player. So you can't do that.
Phil, going back to the Star Wars analogies, do you know who Mika Zibanejad is? He's Boba Fett. He's that character you're like, oh, that's a cool character. Even if I just use it in the context of the original trilogy, you're like, oh, he's a cool character. He's so awesome. Oh, man. And then he dies going into the Sarlacc pit, getting accidentally knocked in by Han Solo. Or that I could also bring in the new Boba Fett, which was a mediocre TV series. And I mean, it's just, that's what Mika Zibanejad is. Now it's like, now the mystery, the veil's off.
There was no
like,
2004-2005 season. That was the lockout. They did not finish dead last in 2004. They ended up drafting 6 that year, and they took out Montoya.
Yeah, they actually
that was a bad pick.
They actually went on a bit of a winning streak at the very end, and that cost them their chances of getting Ovechkin.
Yeah, then the pick before Mark Stahl was Andre Kopitar at 11 to LA. And that was the guy that I wanted. When I found out that the Rangers couldn't get one of Crosby, Bobby Ryan, or Jack Johnson, I wanted Andre Kopitar. And that was the guy that I hoped was going to fall. And then LA took him, and I was very, very pissed off.
I didn't follow prospects as much back then, but when I heard it was Mark Stahl, I went, okay, the Rangers got a solid defenseman. And for the most part, Mark Stahl had a good career with the New York Rangers. Is it a great career? No, not really. And should they have re-signed him back in 2015? No, they shouldn't have. But that's another one of those moments. They thought with their hearts, not with their heads. That was a case where a player should have played out his contract, and then that was it.
The problem with that is that Mark Stahl was not the same after the Eric concussion and then the eye injury from the shot.
Yeah.
And the speed of the game was increasing drastically at that time. It was also the dawn of analytics. And sure, Corsi and Fenwick were really like the two big analytics back then. But there was a time at that point in time where you started seeing a shift towards puck possession and speed, and the analytics were telling you that guys like Stahl and Girardi were guys that you wanted to get away from because their game was not going to age well. Puck possession mattered, and they weren't good with it.
Phil, let's be honest about something else. I talked about defense partners earlier. At one point, it was Stahl and Girardi. Then he had the injury. Then that gave the blossom to McDonough and Girardi, who were a better defensive pairing. But then Anton Stralman comes out of nowhere. He's the perfect counterpart for Mark Stahl. And then they let Stralman leave, and they re-sign
100% on this.
Yeah. Yeah, no, Joe, that's 100%.
100% right.
Michael Sauer in 2 seasons was a plus 11 in 79 games.
So when Michael Sauer first came up, the D pairings, the top four for the Rangers in 2010, 2011 was Stahl and Girardi, left and right. And then it was McDonough and Sauer left and right. And it looked like they had a good young D-corps in place. And then the Stahl concussion happened halfway through that 2011 season. And then he came back halfway through the season from the concussion. Was still relatively good, but he wasn't the same. McDonough had already become the team's de facto one at that point. Him and Girardi were the top pairing. Then fucking the thing with Phaneuf hit on Sauer, and not having Sauer for the playoffs really hurt them against Jersey. Really, really hurt them against Jersey.
Yeah.
So right now, I think that we're looking at a point where I don't know. I'm not sure of what this comment is about, N712. I'm not sure of what you're referencing here. But if you're talking about making upgrades for the Rangers, I'd imagine they're probably going to be looking at one of Provorov, Gavrikov, or Orlov for.
Is he referring to New Jersey?
I mean, he's just saying. I think he might be a Devils fan, but he's just asking.
Well,
I mean, we do talk Devils. It's just
we talked Devils on yesterday's show. So go check out yesterday's show.
Yeah, I mean, we do have we did have Jim Beeringer on from Full Press, and he's a Devils guy. We wanted to talk a little more about where their off season was going to go, but we didn't got caught up. Yeah, so I don't know. I Russian D-man who came in and replaced Sauer. You're talking about Semenov wasn't there anymore.
I think he's talking about Roman Hamrlik.
Roman Hamrlik, yeah. I don't know. No, I mean, no, you're not bothering us.
Oh no, you're not bothered. Don't worry.
No. It's so what I meant to say was that we were supposed to talk a little more about it yesterday, but we didn't get to we really didn't get to do that. So
yeah, so if you have a question on it, go ahead.
Yeah, but I just wasn't sure of what you were asking, to be honest with you. The context of the post was kind of vague. You didn't say where you were what you were referencing, which team. I mean, if you're referencing Jersey, I mean, where do they go from here?
Do they still have an interest in trading Simone Nemec? I mean,
I would think so. I mean, I still think if I look at the Adam Juracek trade, and I try to use that maybe as a comparable and say, hey, what can I get back for this guy? And try to bring in maybe a more established D-man or do they need more firepower forward? Do they need to maybe trade Dawson Mercer? If I were them, I'm trying to find a way to get rid of Andre Palat because that salary is just way too much.
I think the problem with the Devils is that's a team that they need to incorporate more sandpaper into that team.
Yeah, they're not built to win in the playoffs. They're built to win in the regular season. My experience of watching a Jeff Gorton built team, they remind me of a Jeff Gorton built team. A lot of speed, a lot of skill, play fast, but they don't. Hold on. I had Sportsnet Vancouver radio on, and apparently Devils may pounce on Quinn. Heard a rumored return. I have not heard anything about this. Was it Dollywall? Was it Donnie and Dolly that were talking about this? I mean, if Dollywall's talking about this, there may be some steam to it. I thought it would be more than that to get Quinn. I mean, I get that's 2 recent first rounders and 2 more first rounders, but I thought there would be more established players going, like maybe a Dawson Mercer going in that deal as well too.
I'm just staring at that trade, just wondering who's got to have the best of it.
I mean, the best player in the deal is Quinn Hughes.
The best deal player is
Quinn.
We know that.
But I mean, and if he goes and signs, if he gets traded there, I have no question that he will want to stay there and play with his brothers. That to me, that's not even a question. I just think that I really think they're going to have to give up more than that. I do. I just think that you have a guy that's like a 90-point Norris winner, and all you're giving up is two guys that aren't established D-men at the NHL level and 2 first-round picks, I think you're going to need more NHL proven talent. Like, and it's not like he's if he was a free agent next year or the year after, okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, maybe, but I still think it's gonna need more than that.
I think it's good. I think it's probably going to need more. And the funny thing is, talking about 2 first-round draft picks in there, number 2 overall pick, and Siliev. Which one is he?
He was their top prospect from 2023 or 2024. I think 2024 they drafted him.
Because my only other question is there anybody that's going to give them a better deal, maybe a little bit smaller? I mean, you got to assume Quinn goes there, they know he's signing an extension.
He was 2024, yeah. So he's a 6'7" guy.
Yeah, if it's a different team, could they get a better prospect? Knowing, take for instance, I'm just throwing this out there. Let's say if it's the Rantanen trade. So, no, I don't think he would sign with the Rangers.
I don't think so either. I think the only reason why I think that trade might be able to work is because of the fact that he pulls a Rick Nash and says, I just want to go here. I want to play with my brothers, and that's it.
Yeah.
And then that puts Vancouver in a terrible position.
I can't also help but say like this. You already got Adam Fox. If Adam Fox is doing the job, how much better are you going to get with Quinn Hughes and Adam Fox? There's only one puck on the ice. And we saw it in let's go with it. That would be a similar situation, and not exactly, but a similar one to Burns and Carlson in San Jose, which really didn't work out.
No, not at all.
And again, I know that team did have success, but how much did they really have?
Yeah, I mean, this is a good point too. If they trade Quinn to New Jersey, then I mean they're probably going to end up moving Pettersson. They're probably going to go scorched earth.
I don't think they would take Pettersson too. I mean, where the hell are you going to?
No, separate deal.
Separate deal. Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, and again, 712. We talk every single team.
We try to cover as much of the league as possible. So
it's just we get stuck because there's so much Rangers news lately.
Yeah, and I do feel bad, but it's a matter of what the news is. I mean, we could do a Devils wrap up and bring on Jim Beeringer again, and Jimmy would come on with us in a flash.
We have to do an Islanders wrap up with our Anthony LaRocco, and probably if we can, we'd love to get one more guest for that.
Yeah, definitely.
There's a lot of wrap ups that we have to do, and we still have our regular show that we do. It's exciting time for us because we've been doing at least 2 to 3 shows a week for the last 2 weeks. So
this is a crazy stat too. They haven't won a series in 10 years.
That's amazing and astounding. And I really thought they were going to win this series. You looked at that first 2 games, that series, Phil, you thought sweep. And even third, if this is how close they were to winning this series. They chipped that puck out of the zone right before the Bouchard goal. It's over. It's over. They're never going to beat Edmonton.
They will go through. They would have went 3-0, and it would have been real tough for Edmonton to come back. But I mean, you know what? That's why I picked Edmonton. Tell you, I mean, my bracket is completely friggin' busted with Tampa Bay now losing.
Yeah.
But I mean, if Colorado wins, I think everything else I got right.
Oh, my Cup champ is still alive, so I still got that. They're in the next round. I have a feeling they're going to the Stanley Cup Finals, and that's the Vegas Golden Knights.
I wish they could move Igor. I really do, and it's not because I don't think Igor is a great. Let me just be clear with this. A lot of people think that I'm just character assassinating Igor and stuff like that, and I don't think he's good. I think he's great. I think he's elite. I just don't think you pay the goaltender to be your best player, because I've watched this team build around a goalie for nearly 20 years, and it didn't work. It didn't work. It doesn't work in the cap. So for me, if you could do that, I would. I just don't think he would agree to move. I think he wants to be here, and I don't think the Rangers would want to take on the PR mess of signing him to that monster deal and then moving him on top of that. I just think it would be a terrible look for the organization. And I don't think Chris Drury would even consider it, to tell you the truth.
I get frustrated by this because Henrik Lundqvist is one of the 4 greatest New York Rangers ever to don the jersey.
I love the Boss Croker's line.
I know. I have to throw it in there. No,
That's
I'm working
great.
tonight, everybody, if you want to come down. And tomorrow night. And Monday. And most of the nights now. Phil, I can't help but point this out yet again. Henrik Lundqvist deserved the money back then when it was a big money deal. He was the focal point of their team. Igor's not the focal point of this team. I hate to break this news to you. It's Panarin, it's Mika, and this is the reason why they're not winning. So let's get that one straight. You can't win exclusively from a goaltender. How'd that work out, Carey Price? How'd that work out, Henrik Lundqvist? How'd that work out in a way?
Dominic Hasek.
Not Pekka Rinne because they got there, but UC Saros. And he's another one that they kind of rely on a little bit too much. So let's start with that. Then let's also focus on, like I said before, it's more important to find a Selke Trophy winner because that's a guy that's going to shut down the opposition's best player. And that's a guy like Alexander Barkov. That's a guy like Anze Kopitar. Now, granted, I'm talking about number 1 centers, but also like Ryan Kessler. I would have traded Mika Zibanejad for Sean Couturier at a heartbeat this year. In a heartbeat. And I still think that's the best move. Yeah, but Mika Zibanejad's maxed out with the Rangers. You're not getting a 50 goal or 40 goal Mika Zibanejad anymore. You're not getting an 80-point Mika Zibanejad anymore. You're not everybody that might think. I hate to break this news. The writing's on the wall.
All right.
So, but again, look, I have nothing but respect for Igor Shesterkin. It's just that when he's making that contract demand, and I'm screaming for the rooftops, you can't do this. And not only do they decide to do it, but they do it at the worst possible time right after they traded their captain. Like, give it at least some days.
So, yeah, the timing, as we said before, was very, very stupid on that. But I look at Mika Zibanejad, and 19.7% shooting percentage in 2020, his 41-goal year in 57 games, where he led the league in goals per game percentage. After that, 14 even, 13.2 in 2022, 15.5 in 2023, 11.8 in 2026, 2023-24. He had 26 goals, sorry. And then this year, only 20 goals, and he shot at 10.9, just under 11%. The problem is that he is a bounce-back candidate, but to what level is he bouncing back to? Is he going to be a 70-point player? Is he going to be an 80-point player? You also got to talk about whether or not he's playing center or wing. Is he on JT Miller's wing again? Is he number, I don't know, is he the number 2 center behind JT Miller? Does Vincent Trocheck drop down to number 3 center at that point? I mean, I don't know about that.
Let me also continue your thoughts for a second, Phil. And that's, let's look at him back in those prime years with the Rangers right before the contract was signed. He struggled mightily in the shortened season. David Quinn has COVID. Chris Knobloch goes behind the bench. He popped off for 6 points against the Philadelphia Flyers in one period.
He murdered them that year.
And then did it again 2 weeks later, or a week later, I believe. And then you look at this stat line at the end and going, you know what? That's pretty good stats. That's sort of what another thing Mika Zibanejad is. He's feast or famine.
Well, that's the thing. Chris Kreider is also the same way. And in that same season, Chris Kreider had 9 of his 20 goals in a 6-game span, including 2 hat tricks.
Yeah.
And the rest of the year, the other 50 games of the year, he had 11 goals. Like, that's another thing. That's why when people talk about Chris Kreider and they say retire the number and all this other, and he's an all-time great Ranger, Like Chris Kreider's year is encapsulated by stuff like that. And the 2018-19 season, where in the first 38 games of the year, he had 20 goals, and he finished with only 28 goals the rest of the year. 28 goals in general for that year. 8 goals the rest of the year.
Yeah, and I used to defend
Kreider.
that, Phil, by saying they moved them away from Zibanejad because they were trying to tinker and find out what was going on. But not really the case.
I want to go back to this comment from Carly.
All right, we're going to go for about 2 more minutes, by the way.
Yeah, it's not that there's resentment that they had to trade Trouba because Trouba had to go. None of us
No, not that
here anymore. Your last part about this is absolutely right. It's the fact that they probably could have waited, especially after signing him the same day he dealt Trouba. It's that they identified the fact that the core wasn't good enough to win. And the Igor truthers all say, well, the defense in front of him is so bad, Igor's the only reason why they're in games. Okay, so if the goalie is the only reason they're in games and the team in front of him is complete shit, what's the point in overpaying the goaltender?
Yeah. It's like the old Ralph Kiner line. We can finish in first with you. Sorry, we can finish in the last with you. We can finish in the last without you.
Yeah, basically. I mean, that's what it is. It's just no different. It's like Mike Trout. Mike Trout wins MVPs on teams that were terrible that don't make the playoffs.
Carly, let me be clear about this.
I don't think it's resentment from any teammates, honestly.
But you still not. But again, what I keep getting at with this, Phil, is no matter how you slice it, hours after they traded Jacob Trouba, you give Igor Shesterkin the big money right away. Wait a couple days or even a couple weeks, nobody will put those two things together. You do it on the same day, it's sort of like, bye, Jacob. Here's his money. You could have it.
Well, I look at it this way. I go back to the Jerome McGinley, Jose Theodore MVP discussion back in 2002. Theodore won the MVP because Montreal made the playoffs. He won the Vezina and the MVP. He became the first to do it in the modern era. And then, Carey Price obviously did it, 13 years later. But the problem is that, if it's going to take that Herculean effort from the goaltender to get to the playoffs, to get to, Carly, I disagree with this. If that's what you think, that's completely fine. I understand why one would think that. I disagree with it. That's just my opinion. But I think that the teammates and the checking out and the quitting had nothing to do with Igor. It had everything to do with Chris Drury. I think Chris Drury, the way that he handled this season, like Steven and Evan said before, he identified the problem, but the way he went about it afterwards was awful. And that's why I think this team completely just checked out.
But this is also why I have no sympathy for Jacob Trouba in this.
Yeah.
Because they had a deal that was going to send him to Michigan. We all know this, it was reported.
Yes.
And basically Jacob Trouba balked at it and said, well, I'm not going to report there. That's circumventing your no trade clause. If that's the case, then I have no sympathy for any mistreatment Jacob Trouba might possibly think he has. So let's start with that one. Barclay Goodrow, if you can't trade Jacob Trouba, then you have to do somebody dirty. And you know what? They did that. But for the players to come out at the end of the year and cite both of those incidents, you never worked at a job where somebody got let go? Ever? Like, what, you're going to work with the same people forever? BFFs? And by the way, everybody I know that says BFF, usually that lasts like 3 weeks, is like, no. You're a professional organization. Play with the teammates that you can. Wayne Gretzky at one point had to play with Nicholas Sundstrom and John McClain, or Sean Pronger and.
We're going deep into 98, 99 now. Holy shit. Okay.
Like, I mean, look, and don't give me we're a family.
Absolutely agree with this. Crazy that they were still about it.
And especially, that's one of the reasons why Mika Zibanejad, just go somewhere else.
110% right about this, Joe. Why is it that, the players will pull the crap in a bit? Yeah, exactly. And then why was it that the players, why is nobody having the same energy about Tampa when they did this to McDonough.
And by the way, Ryan McDonough went back.
He went back. He had no problem with it. He understood. It's a business. That's what it
But
is.
that's what the hard part about this is. It is put the professional back in professional athlete. And look, and you look at guys like Ryan Lindgren, who deserved more money than what he got. But also, it was time to go.
Yeah,
Nobody had an emotional moment with Ryan Lindgren.
I'm pretty
Everybody
sure
knew
you
he had to
probably
go.
Get sauceless wings if you want, Mike.
Sorry. You could get sauceless wings. They could be on the side, and we can have them grilled for you. That's the usual answer.
Yeah, Mike. There. Sorry. He was answering that question. But it's you can't. Yeah, Vegas too. Vegas is another team that just gets rid of players.
Nobody will speak ill of Vegas.
No one. No one says anything about it. It's magnified when the Rangers do it for whatever reason, because they're the big market. I mean, that's just, I don't know.
And again, we harp on this because when you make the decision to go to the second contract for Igor, and Henrik Lundqvist won 3 playoff series, 2 of them were in the first year of his new deal. So the duration of his deal, he won 1 playoff series. Can anybody remember who he beat?
Well, I'm sorry, I was sneezing.
No, that's all right. The 1 playoff series he beat outside of 2015.
Who?
In his second contract. Montreal. Mika Zibanejad, OT winner in Game 5. Matt Zuccarello, I believe he had 2 goals in Game 6. That was great for that. But it's just, you're putting all your eggs in the goaltending basket when the answer is defense and centers. And I believe, now, by the way, don't get me wrong, I play it both ways because if there's a goalie that can't make a big save, I'll hit him on it. Like Calvin Pickard, like right now.
Calvin Pickard came in and it's funny because for all the crap that Stuart Skinner got, and deservingly so, because Stuart Skinner's not been good in the playoffs, Calvin Pickard comes in out of nowhere. He's the unknown guy, or not really like a true unknown, but not somebody that you expect to come in and be playing in a playoff series. And he's the one that comes in and he's helping them get past LA.
Yeah, he's just making saves. That's all he's doing.
And not only that, but McDavid didn't have a ton of points in that win last night.
You just got to find the goalie that will make saves and not give you this one. Ugh. Because if you're constantly feeling like you have to outscore the goals your goalie's going to let up, that's not a good recipe. If your goalie lets in goals at bad times, if you just tied the game and he lets one in right away. The Rangers 22 times this year let in goals in under 2 minutes.
And then talk about after they scored goals too. If you can pull that up,
right?
That's got to be not good in their favor.
And a matter of fact, I think it might be 23. I have to double check that, but still, that's not a good statistic.
That's a good point here. Brady Tkachuk was not happy about Josh Norris being traded, but you know what? It happened.
What's the greatest tandem you could think of in your lifetime, Phil?
Greatest tandem I can think of in my lifetime?
Yeah, a pair of teammates. You thought they were inseparable. I'll go first. I'll go to Karani and Korea and Solani.
They were a great duo.
They were a great duo. Solani went to
maybe Yager and Lemieux.
But so Solani ended up going to San Jose. I forgot. I think they traded him there. I'm not sure.
They traded him to San Jose for Jeff Friesen and Steve Shields.
Yeah, and look what happened. Korea goes to the Stanley Cup Finals without. Hey, John, how we doing?
How's it going, man?
Korea goes to the Stanley Cup Finals without Solani, and Solani wins his Stanley Cup in Anaheim without
Korea. Crazy.
I mean, look, guys. Sometimes, like for me personally, a year ago,
Jar Jar Binks needs to go. Oh man, we shouldn't have done this. Now I'm going to refer to Mika Zibanejad as Jar Jar.
Jar Jar.
Oh my God, please no.
Yeah.
I hate Jar Jar Binks enough as it is.
Oh man, he's definitely the worst character in Star Wars history.
Yeah, Messier definitely. Well, I mean, we all know about that. And if anybody ever wanted to watch if you haven't watched the whole Saving Sakic thing, it gives a little more insight as to what was going on in New York about Messier as well. So.
Also, while you're at it, if you want to, pull up our interview with Neil Smith.
Yeah, that's another thing. We had him on a couple of years back, and he was great, and he explained a lot of that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. So, all right, guys. So we're going to call it here. A nice, rich, short 2.5 hour show that we made up on the fly.
Oh, my God. Man, that is just...
Misa is Wigan now. Oh, my goodness. But again, it's look, we're not attacking players unless you have to attack them on something. Like right now, we're actually attacking Mika because it's obvious.
This part is fun, but I do think Mika Zibanejad needs to go. I do think that there's this is another great duo, obviously, with Sakic and Forsberg. They were so good.
Yeah.
But
Forsberg eventually left for
Philadelphia
first, then Nashville.
Yeah. No, he was traded. He signed with Philly, and then he was traded to Nashville, and then he came back to Colorado for a very, very short stint, and then had to retire.
Yeah, his foot was a major problem. But we're gonna get this uploaded for all the audio people that haven't listened, and they're not really gonna be able to have any bookmarks for it. But there's just a lot. Again, look, we're not negative people, but we have to call it like we see it. We can't sit there and go, hey, no, it's okay. It's a great decision to sign a guy to an $11.5 million deal for the next 8 years and pay him as his numbers keep declining. I'm not going to do that. I'm not. And look, Chris Kreider, just as a fan, I was one of those guys. I bought a Chris Kreider jersey before he even played a regular season game. A friend of mine hyped him up for me. I loved Chris Kreider. And then now it's like I can't help but say it's over though for Chris Kreider. He's not going to be a Ranger.
Yeah, I followed Chris Kreider since the moment they drafted him. I remember watching him at BC in his first year. I remember when he scored that incredible goal in the Bean Pot, and that was a viral goal back then. Like YouTube was still kind of in its earlier stages. I mean, it came out like 2005, I think. That was 2009, 2010. That goal happened, I think, in 2009. But I tell you right now that Chris Kreider had everything it took to be that guy. And he could have been the second coming to Kevin Stevens. A lot of this is self-inflicted. And if he feels like he was wronged by the organization, then you know what? Maybe you should take a look in the mirror and realize that, for years, he would show up for stretches and then disappear for even longer periods of time.
And yeah, I also think that's because he's not a puck-dependent player. That's part of the problem. But Phil, you would also agree nobody has scored more clutch goals for the New York Rangers over the last 13 years.
Yeah, and I would agree with you there. But I think like the bar is very low.
But they don't beat Ottawa in 2012 without Chris Kreider.
I understand, but again, the bar is low. Like before Chris Kreider and the playoff moments, the last playoff moment that I can remember before that where I was like, whoa, this is great, was Wayne Gretzky. Are we really going to talk about Michael Roosevelt's Game 3 overtime winner at the Garden against Buffalo in 2007?
Well, we're not going to talk about Michael Nylander's hat trick.
Michael Nylander's hat trick? That wasn't clutch. They beat the crap out of Atlanta. They held Marian Hossa to 2 points. Ilya Kovalchuk was single-handedly taken out of that series by Sean Avery.
Mm-hmm.
By Sean Avery being Sean Avery. Nobody cares about that. Every Avery fan will bring that up. But you know what? Like, that's not like a list of clutch moments. You'd have to go back to Gretzky. And then you'd have to go back to Tikkanen. And then you'd have to go back to, Mark Messier before that and Brian Leetch in 94. Like, the bar in the last 30 years is low. So saying, like Steven said before, just because a guy is the best leader on this team doesn't mean he's the best leader. Just because Chris Kreider has been teams most clutch goal scorer over the last 15 years doesn't mean that he is this major clutch goal scorer. He's not even Justin Williams.
It's hard to be Justin Williams, though. That's hard.
I understand that, but Justin Williams is overrated in his own aspect.
Yeah, but then again,
Game
also
7, look at his career playoff numbers.
right.
And tell me that he's one of the greatest playoff performers of all time, and I'm going to laugh at you. I'm sorry.
No, they're going to mention it because of Game 7 numbers.
Because he gets a reputation because of that. Kreider has a reputation because he's done certain things in certain moments. Justin Williams has 102 points and 41 goals in 162 playoff games. He has never scored more than 9 goals in a postseason, and he has never been a point per game in a postseason run.
And yet he has a Conn Smythe.
And he has a Conn Smythe for it because of 2014. And you could have given that Conn Smythe to Anze Kopitar, who played those tough minutes on that line with him and played great two-way hockey while scoring over a point per game.
It's just when I look at Chris Kreider, when I do the epitaph on him with the New York Rangers, it's going to be big time playoff player for the Rangers. But then again, this is where we're both right. He showed up in big moments. He disappeared in other ones.
Yes.
Because as much as you want to, as much as I want to say, hey Phil, what about Game 5 versus the Capitals when he had the game tying goal? The first period of Game 1 when he had the first 2 goals of the game, where basically he bullied the defenseman and got 2 goals, one of them right before time expired. You could also come back and say to me, all right, where was he in Game 1, Game 2, Game 1, Game 3, Game 4 of that series?
No,
when the Rangers just, yeah.
He is not the Mr. October of hockey.
No, he's Mr. Game 7. That's what his nickname
Mr. Game 7, and the problem is, okay, in 2014, there were 3 players on that team that, 2 players on that team that had more goals than him. Marian Gaborik led all playoff scorers with 14 goals.
Yep.
14 goals. Jeff Carter had 10 and had as many points as him. Anze Kopitar led the NHL in assists and points with 21 and 26. And Anze Kopitar had all the tough assignments. He was their two-way guy. He was more important. He just scored goals in Game 7s. That was it. And a lot of this stems from, he had the 2-goal game against Edmonton in 2006. One of those was an empty net goal.
Yeah. And he had the game-winning goals against the Flyers. Look, every one of us would take Justin Williams on our team. We're not putting him in the Hall of Fame.
The point more so is that players have reputations where they're a little over-exaggerated. If you want to talk about the real Mr. October of hockey, as in a player who shows up in October and October only, I would suggest you guys go back and watch Brian Savage. That guy could score in October and no other month.
I thought you were going to say Brendan Dubinsky.
No, Brian Savage is probably
Brian Savage. Yeah, Brian Savage.
There was like a 3-year period in a row where he started off like the first 3 weeks of the season as one of the top scorers in hockey. I think it was 2000, 2001, and 2002. I think it was. And even Mark Parrish started off that season pretty hot, from what I remember. 2002, but it just you can't base these reputations off of one game and hold these guys to standards that they don't actually meet. The bar's low here.
Yeah. All right, guys, we're going to wrap this up right here. Again, everybody, thank you very much. We got almost 500 you guys still watching right now. And look, you stuck with us through a lot of time today.
Yeah.
Yeah, anybody that's still watching. And look, this is why we do this. This is why we're still expanding. Who was it that had 7 goals in the first 2 weeks and end up with 8 goals? That's a great question. I got to look at that.
Wow.
2 years ago.
A few years ago, ended up with 8 goals total. I remember Brett Howden started his career pretty fast too. I'm working, so I'm getting paid to watch. Yeah. I mean, Brian left a compliment yesterday and said that you helped me get through my afternoons, and that was a very nice compliment to get because we love doing this. But if we're helping you guys get through your afternoons, that's one of the best things that we can get paid get said about this.
Although I do have to say this one, David's asking right here, why did they trade Gaborik right before signing AV as coach?
Tortorella ran him out of town.
Tortorella ran him out of town, but here's one thing everybody just needs to remember. The New York Rangers do not play in the Stanley Cup Finals if they don't trade Marian Gaborik.
They don't.
Because big game Derek Brassard,
big game
brass. John Moore and Derek Dorsett was in that deal. So you had the fourth line that was anchored with Moore and Boyle.
And Boyle, yeah.
Moore, who was solidified the third pairing, he didn't completely solidify it because the guy that came in to solidify it was Kevin Klein. So this
was a different deal, yeah.
Yeah, this is where I'd make that deal again. What sucks is it's sort of like the Carl Hagelin situation where you get rid of the guy, it doesn't work out in the location that they sent him to, and then he gets acquired by another team that ends up beating you in the playoffs. But
yeah, Derek Brassard's 2014 run was really, really good, and they were not playing first line minutes. Like the lines were like very close in minutes, but they were the third line. Him, Pouliot, and Zuccarello that was their third line. It was Stepan, Nash, and San Luis, I believe, or Kreider.
No, it was wait, we're talking about 2013?
2014.
2014. When they went to the finals, it was Stepan Kreider, and they used JT Miller a little bit, but not that much. I think it might have been Jesper
JT
Fast.
Miller really didn't play much of them. Jesper Fast was a fourth liner with them at times.
I'm thinking 2015 when he was with them, because Jesper Fast had the 2-goal game on the Kreider line with Stepan in Game 3 versus Tampa, the one that the Rangers ended up winning in overtime on Kucherov's goal.
Yeah, I mean, and then Hagelin played with Richards and no. Okay, so it was Stepan Kreider and Nash. It was Richards, San Luis, and Hagelin, Brassard, Pouliot, and Zuccarello, and then Dorsett, Moore, and Boyle, and then Carcillo rotated in on that fourth line, and then they had Jesper Fast at a couple of times.
All right.
When Carcillo got suspended, they brought in Jesper Fast.
Yeah. And I do know JT Miller played in Game 5 of one of those games because I was at that game and JT Miller played. All right, I got the ice cream man that's drowning me out now, so now that's got to really No, Kroger's doesn't deliver out of state, Sean, if only we did. Kroger's delivered me a co-host, so that's good enough. Yeah, I've said goodbye much more on longer shows, but
yeah,
Delzato was good for a couple years, but he was so inconsistent. And Anthony, they actually said that he's not going to be joining the staff. Yeah. All right, guys, everybody, thank you very much. I gotta get ready and get set for work. Again, look for more streams like this. Look for our weekly stream that was yesterday where we talked about Mike Babcock. We didn't even talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs or the rest of the Stanley Cup playoffs today, but Jay's got a good point with this one. If you could get a first for Shea, what could you get for Keandre Miller? And I think you get more for Keandre Miller. So,
yeah, I don't know. That's a good question, but I don't think they're going to deal him right now unless they can get some sort of left side depth. Because
of course, Matt, thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you again, Matt, and thanks for Evan too, if Evan's still watching. But I think Keandre Miller, I just don't understand. Unless they get depth in there, I don't think they can deal him.
Yeah, I don't think they're dealing him. I think they're going to be forced to keep him. But that's what I would do. I would get a good center prospect back, but the Anton Liddells don't grow on trees. All right, guys. Thank you very much. We will talk to you soon. We will see you maybe as early as Monday, but the next time that there's more news that's breaking, we're going to get on there. And thank you all very much. And we will talk to you later.